How y'all doing? How y'all doing?
What's
Hey,
going on?
Listen,
Welcome to
Johnny.
another episode
How
of
y'all
Sports
doing?
and
Hey, I'm glad you represent with the Pittsburgh. She wouldn't do it, man.
I
No
can't.
one cares. Anyway, welcome to another episode of
We
Sports
just
and 15.
lost our, so.
I'm Mel. Joining me as always is Ronnie Big Smooth Hennigan. Smooth, what's happening, man?
not a whole lot, Mel. Crazy weekend as usual. So let's just get right into it, man. Let's get right into it.
All right. Without further ado, we have two guests tonight. Joining us from our friends over at Cleveland Sports Talk, Natalie, our baseball correspondent. Natalie, good to have you on.
Hello. How is
And joining, we're good. And joining us, our actual, guest, if you want to call him that, a good friend of mine, one of the best offensive linemen I've ever played with, and dear friend of my heart, even though he's a Browns fan, Josh Pack. Josh, welcome to the show, man.
It's good to see you guys. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
No problem. Okay, Josh, take us through humble beginnings for you. What was life like for you growing up and leading up to high school? What was the atmosphere like for you?
I was very fortunate. I grew up in a football town, small city on the west side of Cleveland, Avon Lake. I mean, when you cross the tracks into Avon Lake, it says "Welcome to Shoreman Country." So, I was very fortunate growing up in a sports town. Everyone's right behind the football team there. My freshman year we won the state championships. Sophomore year we were runner-up state champs. My junior year, we got knocked out the third round, and then my senior year, we actually missed the playoffs by half a game. So, just been around a winning program the whole time. It's just a great team to be around. Everyone worked out at the same gym. Everyone knew everybody. I mean, we all hung out. We, played football. Just growing up, basically you play with the kids that you started playing with in sixth grade. I mean, it's that brotherhood there. So. I mean, I was very fortunate being good at neighborhood and everything.
All right. Now, you said you were at Avon Lake. For those that don't know and our viewers that are watching, Avon Lake is a very small town, not small enough to where no one cares. But when you actually play this team is very disciplined, very sound on both sides of the football, offense and defense. For you, Josh, when you were there, was there any pressure to win like there would be at, like, say, Massillon or Kent McKinley, or was it just, keep the tradition alive? So what was more of an impact for you? Was it the pressure to win, or just, was it easy going?
It was a lot of pressure, especially we were trying to win our 10th conference championship in a row. I mean, you had guys that were alumni coming back saying, especially after our first loss to Elyria, they're not in our conference, but it's a team that we play every year, and we got smacked by 28-0. Not a very good highlight of the career, but it's something that I think helped us grow as a team. And then we had another couple of close games that we were playing good teams like Olmsted Falls, if you guys have heard of them. Also, we played and lost to what was the team called now? It was Brecksfield, and honestly, I think Brecksfield ended up winning it that year as well. We lost by 1 point, and we actually missed a field goal to actually lose that game. And then Olmsted Falls had a kid that was, I think it was Tyler Sparks. I remember there were times we were thinking we had a sack, and the guy threw it for 25 yards for a touchdown in the end zone, and we just couldn't get the guy down, and he had a rocket for an arm. I think he actually went and played basketball at Toledo, actually. So the guy was like 6'5", 220, and he could move and had a cannon, and he was so accurate too. And we lost. I think we lost 21-14 that game. And in Avon Lake, losing is not acceptable at all. I mean, like I said, it's crazy when I see you see the Friday Night Lights in Texas. That's how Avon Lake was. It's like growing up in Texas playing football, but in Ohio. I mean, in Northeast Ohio. I guess people around the country don't really know how big Ohio is with football, till you play for one of those big football teams up there in high school. So, yeah, the pressure was crazy. You had a whole whole city behind you. I mean, everyone. You never asked anyone, "What are you doing Friday night?" You knew everyone was going to the game Friday night. I mean, that's how crazy it was there. So I mean, it was a great experience, and I'll never forget that either.
I've been trying to tell people that for the longest, like people that aren't from here, and because I remember when we would be out, fulfilling our arena contract, people would ask us like, "What's so big? What's so great about football up here?" I'm like, "Dude, you really got to be up here. You can't just describe it to me because you wouldn't get it." But some people end up seeing it anyway, so it was just it's a great atmosphere no matter where you go. Okay, you graduate Avon Lake and signing day comes, and you end up signing with Mount Union, and you go be a Purple Raider. What brought that decision about, and what made you choose Mount Union?
So it was kind of weird because everyone's thinking like you want to go play D1 or D2, but of course Mount Union's Division III, and I had some D2 offers, I had other D3, I had some preferred walk-ons, and I guess it was one of those things because there's a lot of Avon Lake kids that go to Mount Union, so there's always like I had family friends, other friends that were going there, so it was like if I wasn't going to go play D2. Was going to play D3, I wanted to play for the best because I'm very competitive, and I don't know if I could live life going to play for another D3 school, even though I got in the field quicker and played sooner. That always in the back of my mind, I would think, hey, was that ever good enough to play for them? So that's basically what came to it, and it did help that I had a family friend that was there. He was a senior when I was a freshman there, and let's be honest, we're all competitors, we're all athletes. Who doesn't want to chase a ring? I mean, it's just being the capability of just getting one of those. I mean, I was fortunate my freshman year we lost the national championship, but my sophomore year we did win. I mean, how many colleges that you could go play for that they don't even accept the conference championship ring? Because if it's not a national championship ing, they don't accept it. Like, how many people could say that?
Not a lot.
I think when I was there, we were 29 in a row.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Now, if memory serves me right, you were there with Cecil and Pierre for a little bit. I'm trying to remember that right. Because you said your sophomore year, and I believe that they did. You guys won it all the way. So, were you there with Cecil and Pierre, or were they ahead of you by a couple of years?
So Pierre was ahead of me. He was a senior when I was a freshman, but Cecil actually. We were technically in the same class for football, but he was a year older than me in academics, actually.
Okay.
And a funny story, I found out that my uncle that trained me for football and Cecil's dad actually played at Kent State together, actually, too.
Wow.
That's cool.
Because our lockers were like right next to each other. So I got to see Cecil play for a couple of years, and it was awesome. They had that man practicing every position of the field, except for offensive line, defensive line, probably. I mean, the man can play any position. The reason he told me he went to Mount was because he wanted to play quarterback. And the other schools wouldn't give him a shot at quarterback. They wanted him at receiver or defensive back, actually.
And what's funny about that, for those that don't know, Cecil was actually a great quarterback at Collinwood. Like, he could really throw the ball. And he had what made him such a good quarterback, like escaping the pocket, was he had the slowest quarterback juke move ever.
Yes,
he would do this. He had this ugly little lean where he would lean like, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but he would lean like this to get away from a defensive lineman, and it looked like he was trying to do the Harlem Shake, and then come back up and just take off.
Oh, I seen that move. It was the one that got him cracked when they played St. Vincent St. Mary at St. Vincent St. Mary, and I don't know if that game was not in our favor. I'll tell you that. But
it wasn't. But the only reason it wasn't, I was there. I was at that game. The only reason it wasn't in our favor was because we had more speed than they did. It was clear.
Absolutely.
The problem was when it got to the second half, they switched to a wishbone offense. Who the hell in the Senate uses a wishbone offense at that time? Nobody. We had no answer. We couldn't defend it, and they had this big ass fullback who was built like Josh, except he was built like Josh as far as height. You know, Josh is like 6'2", 6'3", This dude was like 6'2", 6'3", but he was lanky and his upper body was strong as shit. And everybody on the defense is under 6 feet or 6 feet. We had no answer for that. You couldn't bring it down the way we wanted.
That sucks.
So you don't see a wishbone, you don't have an answer for it. It sucks, but
no, you don't.
Yeah, but back to Josh. Go ahead.
But Josh, with your time there, man, and first of all, congrats to you on winning that national title. You know what I mean? Because I know for me, just being involved with a couple of guys up in the Cleveland area, and then we had a guy by the name of J.J. Boone that wanted to go to Mount Union and play there as well too. So it's just cool to hear, like, to actually talk to somebody who got a title from there, man. So it's really impressive. You know what I mean? I wanted to congratulate you on there for doing that. I do want to ask you though, while you were at Mount Union, kind of run through, like, what were some of your most memorable moments on the field, your best games, stuff like that. Like, what stood out to you the most while you were there as a Purple Ranger?
So I would actually have to say, like, it's funny to say this, and it's probably a bad thing on my part to actually admit this, but when I was there, Larry Karras was the head coach at Mount Union, and that man, they were averaging about 115, 120 freshmen coming in there every year, some crazy amount of freshmen, and by the time my junior year happened, there was only I think we had 116 actually, to be exact, and by the time my junior year hit, there was only I think there was 25 of us left, because I literally saw guys that would transfer from D3 and they would be going to Division I schools to go play. It's like crazy the kind of athletes Mount Union actually received. But one of my craziest stories, and I tell everyone this all the time, Larry Karras cared so much about his athletes, and he really cares about the two words student athlete. And student, you are a student before you're an athlete. And I remember just walking back to my dorm room, and I was struggling in a psychology class. And he was driving his little golf cart around campus, and we were going to pass. It was mid of the semester, and he's like, "How you doing, Mr. Pack?" And I was like, "I'm doing great, Coach, doing great." He's like, "You behaving?" I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "How's classes going?" I'm like, "Great." He's like, "How's that psychology class? You raised that up from a C to a B or something?" And I was like, "How'd you know?" To have that many players and to actually know all their grades it's crazy. But that's how much he cared, because if you weren't eligible, you weren't nothing to him. You know what I mean? So, he really knew how to build a great program. And it was just a great, like I said, the family part is just that's basically what Avon Lake was to me in high school. And that's why it was so much easier to transition to Mount Union, because it had the same feeling around it, that brotherhood, that family. Your teammates had your back, and your coaches had your back. They were easy to go to and easy to talk to as well. That I just remember just walking. I still can remember this day. That was I think it's 13 years ago now, and it's just remember him riding his golf cart, me passing him, and he just called me out in front of a couple of my friends, my teammates. It was just he did not care. He's just he's like, "Don't be going out. You better be studying and everything." And I remember waking up at 6 in the morning. It's full of snow on the stadium. We had a 6 a.m. workout. We were running the steps, flipping tires in the middle of the field. It was just, and the funny part was, it wasn't even now if we did that, we'd be like, "This is cold, this is baloney." But it was fun, because he always made everything a competition. It's who's going to be the best, who wanted it more. That's the kind of thing, he knew how to make hard work into a competition and make us have fun doing it as well.
That's what's up. Okay. Leave Mount Union with a title in your hand, a title on your resume. And when I meet you, I think I want to say 2009, 2010, one of the two.
I think it was 2010, actually.
Okay, we're in the semi-pro world for a little bit.
Yep.
And right, if I'm not mistaken, we're both on the Vikings. And no, were you with the Vikings?
I was playing against you the first year I met you, actually.
Okay, because you were with.
I was on the Lake Erie Panthers, and you were on the Vikings.
Okay, and I met you, and I'm watching you play, and I'm sitting up there telling our team, because we had Puma as our quarterback at the time, and I'm like, "Yo, this team stinks, but we need that center. Like, I don't give a fuck what we got to do. We need that center. And I remember Puma saying, because I think he heard me over telling somebody else, and he's like, Rome, if you could get him as our center, I will fucking throw you the ball every chance I get. All right, don't threaten me with a good time. So I talked to you after the game, and then the next year, 2011, I see you in a Vikings uniform. What made you choose the Vikings that year? I've always wanted to ask that.
See, it's crazy because, you know, I had every team in that league because it was like my rookie year there, and I thought college recruiting was rough and tough, and you're getting phone calls every night. I swear, semi-pro coaches, as soon as they're allowed to sign someone, they are after you, calling you like 3 times a day. Players contacting you, and you know, I was like, you know, everyone's like, you know, you should focus on who gave you the chance. You know, the Panthers, but we went 0-10. The only game I won that year was the All-Star game. And I think I was the one that wanted to win the All-Star game the most because I was like, I hate losing. Never been a part of a losing program. You know, from high school to college to this, I'm like, you know, I still stuck it out, and I met a lot of great people and stuff. And then I'll be honest with you, when I saw Rose, the Connor brothers, Holderman, and the only thing they were missing was like a right tackle, I was like how much more would you want to play with the great offensive line? And that stadium was beautiful too. If you remember, it was like that bowl. And then, you know, Romello always made me laugh too. So I was like, why not try to give him a chance and everything like that? So, you know, they just, you guys have had so much good fundamentals. I mean, you guys just played like a real organization. You know, it's in summer pro. I know a lot of people know there's a lot of bad things called because of the fighting, the cussing and stuff. I mean, it's, you know, if I was a parent, would I want to take my kids to watch grown men fight on a Saturday? No, of course not. But the Vikings actually, you know, they had structure there. They were organized, and they didn't play around. They didn't let people fight, cuss, and everything like that. You'd be sitting on the bench. You know, a lot of these teams, their all-star get away with so much because they can't afford not to play them. The Vikings didn't really care because as long as they played their kind of football, they were going to win no matter what in their minds. Yeah. So I think that was the big thing, is just that family. Like right away when I started talking and hanging out with the guys, I mean, I felt like a family. I mean, I went to Aaron Holderman's wedding. You know, I've only known the guy for 2 or 3 years. You know, it was just that O-line. That was like the best O-line I ever played with at different levels. I mean, they were just big hogs that just like to run the football, play smash mouth football. I still have the jersey hanging in my closet right now.
I still got mine too. And for those wondering, so Ronnie, this for you too. Before it became the Spire Institute, it was a great athletic complex out in Geneva. We were actually the first team to actually play on that field for 2 years. So that shows you.
That's where Spire plays, huh?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, the reason we got to play there starting in 2010 was because 2 of our teammates, Salvatore and Richard Thorker, were actually part of the construction team. So
really?
Yeah. So with them being part of the construction team, they just walked up to the people who were running the place and was just like, look, we got a football team. We can, you know, bring in some people over the summer. And we had great crowds no matter where we played. Like, we stunk back in 2009. We stunk, and we sold out damn near for a semi-pro organization. Selling out means you get over 100 people there. So we would sell out 100 people, 150 people, no problem. And the way that the Spire Institute was set up, it was prime for football. You know, that stadium was just there, like, over the summer. We had at least 300 people there. So it wasn't no problem. Yeah. And then we made the playoff that year. The next year, we started off there, and then they wanted to charge us an arm and a leg in our firstborn, and we ended up moving out to Cardinal High School out in Middlefield, which was still a good place because, you know, from what I was told and the research I did, that was originally their home field. So we had a ball there too, and it just worked. And with Josh coming over, that made our offensive line that much better. We ended up getting Damian Ivory as a quarterback. Shout out to him. And, you know, Cornelius Strickland. it was just a plethora of dudes that could play, and that was the great part about it. All right, I hate to bring this up, but I have to.
Uh-oh.
No, it's not a bad thing, but because I put an asterisk on this season. We go 9-1. We lose out in Pittsburgh, even though that was some BS. And then we go to Lima for conference championship. Do you remember how you felt going into that game? Because I remember how I felt before, during, and after. And I know me and you were on the same page. Like, man, we got to come out of this with a win. We can't go 4 hours and lose. And we ended up getting pounded. But what was that feeling like for you when we got to Lima to play in the conference championship?
Do you ever remember like the toughest place to ever go into and play?
Mm-hmm.
That's Lima. It's like the worst part is it's just in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, near like south of Toledo. And it's just one of those places that it's just the last place you want to go to play. That and Erie, PA is like the two worst places to ever go play a game in my life. And it's just, I don't know what it is there, but it's just that defense. And I think it's because, with the Vikings, we didn't practice that often together. And to go against that kind of, it's like playing the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. They hide everything so well that it's almost a guessing game who to block. And if you're not on the same page 100% together, you're not going to be able to stop them. And you can't make you can't like try to pass long plays. You have to make everything short. Screens. I think, again, like the older you get, the more knowledge you get about the sport. I think if I had played now, it would have been a lot different than actually when I played, 10 years ago, 13 years ago, because when you're young, you're not thinking of different ways to go quick. Everyone at that age just wants to do that big play. You want that one and done play. But yeah, Lima was no joke to play at. Lima, they always were tough. They were always prepared. And that they weren't that great of athletes. They just knew how to play the game, and they knew how to run their scheme that well. It was just crazy because I thought we were walking in there that we were going to kill them. We were going to run all over them. No, that wasn't exactly the truth when we got there. And it could have been that 3.5-hour bus ride, 4-hour bus ride, but I can't really blame that. They just played good football and won.
Man, that was Ronnie. I know you remember. We had Glenn on a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So Glenn said the same thing, and I was just like, and you're right. Knowing what I know now, I'd have totally went into that game a different way because I had revenge on my mind. We had went there the year before, first round, got beat on. I'm like, I'm not having that again. I don't care what I got to do. If I got to spit on somebody in the pile, I'm not losing. And Josh will like this fact. That field that we played them on in the conference championship was also the exact same field Ohio Northern beat Mount Union on back in 2005.
Yep.
So that was crazy.
I remember when I went to when I was going to the Ohio Northern, like that, they recruited me really tough. That was actually one of my other favorite ones. My biggest issue with them was that all they talked about how they beat Mount Union and everything like that. And I think that's what was the biggest downfall for them, because the difference between them and Mount Union was talking about winning national championships. Ohio Northern thought them being Mount Union was the national championship. And that just, to me, I'd rather they're just happy they beat one team once in 20 years. Mount Union's not satisfied unless they win a national championship every year. And to me, that was the closing date right there. I mean, I had a teammate in high school, and I was in between like 4 colleges picking it out. And it was Ohio Dominican, they're Division II. They're down in Columbus. It was Ohio Northern, Mount Union, and I think Youngstown. And he told me, we were working out playing basketball afterwards, and he literally told me, he's like, you're going to be a Purple Raider. Just, you're not going to admit it right now, but that's where you're going to go. And actually, I do want to say, bless his soul and everything, because he did pass away, unfortunately. But that man was 100% correct. He was like, we already know where you're going. You just haven't said it out loud yet. So, I mean, and it was hard because at the time, Ohio Dominican had the better offer. But the problem was, deep down, I knew where I wanted to play at.
And that's usually how it is with some kids. So, children, if you're paying attention and you're in high school, you're a senior, go with what your heart is telling you. Don't just make the big offer. Don't just go for the big offers. Go with where your heart is telling you.
Absolutely.
All right, that was 2000. That was the summer of 2011. Going into this, I'm in my third year of arena balls. I started out with the Silverbacks down in Dayton. I got a contract with Tucson out in Arizona in the AIF, but that fell through because the team folded and nobody told nobody. The only way I found out was because our agent at the time, Gabe, called me at 11 o'clock at night and was asking me what did I know about this. So he gives me another contract. Yeah, believe it or not. He gives me another contract, and I'm going to Saginaw, Michigan, and my cousin, who's actually from Saginaw, is sitting up there adamantly protesting for me not to go to Saginaw. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to turn down a contract. Come to find out, Gabe lets me know he's got another guy that he knows about that's going up to Saginaw, and I should get in touch with him, and it's you. So we ride up, and it was actually a good ride. I got to know you. I got to know, what life was like for you, because everybody's coming from a different background. And we get there, and all I can remember when we first pull up is there's nothing but snow in the hotel parking lot.
Oh, it was horrible.
And I'm like, I'm looking at you, but I'm not looking at you in a bad way. I'm looking at you because I'm cussing out Gabe in the back of my head like, dude, where the hell did you just send me? You sent me to a fucking winter wonderland. And we get there, we meet all the coaches and everything. What was it like for you as a lineman? Because we were in a new league. We were first year to UIF. What was it like for you as a lineman to be with a team like Saginaw? Because Saginaw has the reputation of being one of those dominant indoor teams.
So for me, I think it was just like the I don't know factor. You didn't really know what to expect and everything. And I'm not gonna lie, I was going through a real rough time in my life. My parents were going through divorce. My sister and brother were having trouble. I worked out for the Gladiators. They actually told me they are like, hey, we like your talent, but it's raw. They're like, hey, I have a friend that's up there in Saginaw, Michigan. I want you to go play for him. Get a year under your belt, and then, hey, come back to us, with a year, hopefully with the championship, and then come play for us and finish out the playoff run and everything. So me and you were driving. I saw you at practice, Romel. I remember, I think at a Viking practice, and I heard that he was going there as well. And then Romel brought it up to me. I was like, oh, shoot, I didn't know we were going to be teammates and stuff like that. So I was like, hey, do you want to ride up together? I'm taking my car up there. So it was when we got up there, it was a huge snowstorm going there. They actually delayed camp by 2 days, I believe, too, if you remember that, Romel. And he was no joke, the biggest snowstorm ever. And we got up there. Of course, when you're a big lineman and everything, you're just trying to pick out the other big dudes that walk through the door at the hotel that's about booking in and stuff and everything. And I remember there was I think there was about 10 linemen. And I never really played – I played center a little bit. I could only snap – at that time, I could only snap when a quarterback's underneath, not shotgun snap. And I remember the first practice was who could play center? I look around there, and no one else raised their hand. I just rose my hand. I was like, I can. I'm like, I can snap underneath. They're like, can you shotgun? I'm like, I can't, but I got all day to learn. I'll snap the ball 100 times a day if I have to learn how to shotgun. And honestly, it ended up being the best move of my life because I went from guard to center and not realizing it, but and I didn't really, I guess I didn't realize the whole indoor game because I really just saw it, watch the Gladiators play, be a fan and stuff, but I really didn't understand it. And honestly, with being an old lineman, I was a better pass blocker than run blocker, so that was a good start for me already. And then the nose tackles, they had to stay in a zero technique, and they didn't. They tried to cheat to try to shade me. I always call them out in front of the refs, try to be the nicest guy the refs ever. I guess you could say I was sort of suck up to the refs a little bit. And the best part is when you're nice to the refs, become friends with the refs, they never call you something called holding. So I remember there's so many times that I knew I was holding, and I'm like, I should have been caught. And all I was doing was looking around for a yellow flag because I went over 2 seasons without getting a sack up. And I remember my third season, we got a new quarterback, and this guy and I didn't get really see eye to eye. But by the end of the season, he respected me the most. But he used to talk smack to me, and I was like, hey, I'll snap the ball low, and I'll let the guy ride by and just nail you. He's like, you won't give up your 2 seasons without a sack just because of me. I'm like, you're real close from that. But no, I think, like I said, the I don't know factor is the big thing. I mean, just going into camp as a rookie, not knowing anyone. I mean, I knew you, Romel, and just meeting everyone from different parts of the country and everything. I felt like college all over again, to be honest. I mean, what was yours?
Well, for me, it was different because this was my first time out of the state, and you know, I was like, all right, I'm gonna give my best effort, and I did. You know, it was different because for DBs, it's so much pressure in camp because, as we both know, arena football is a very big revolving door. The same people you start camp with, you may not play that first game with, and I'm just like, I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna give my best foot, and gonna just take it from there. And I was cool. And I made it all the way to the last day of cut. And that was what killed me because I was like, all right, I done made it this far. You know, I'll take coming off the bench. You know, I'll run special teams. It don't matter. Just let me play. And then knock on the door because we had switched rooms by that point because me and Josh was roommates. And we kept fighting.
That's a funny story, actually.
And what happened was we kept fighting over the heat. Mind you, this is Saginaw, Michigan.
Oh, this is the heat story.
Yes, this is the heat story I've been telling you about.
Oh, man. Okay. Let me go on mute for this.
So when we get there, like we told you, we just got there after a snowstorm. It's like 5 degrees outside the whole camp. Josh is a big guy. I'm cool with that. I like linemen. So this one particular night, it was really cold at practice. So we were all freezing, and then we ended up going back to the room. We chilling. Josh, I believe he had just came back from the pool, got to swim in or whatever. I was in the shower. I came back out. I turned the heat up. I wake up about 2 in the morning. The fucking heat is off.
I think I turned the window open too.
Yeah, he opened, and I'm sleeping right next to the window. So I'm like, why the fuck is it cold? I get up. Man. I look. The curtain is blowing like this.
Yeah.
The heat is like all the way off. So I'm looking like it can't be. It's only 2 people in here.
Was your lips blue?
My lips wasn't blue, but I was shivering my ass off. I tell you that. So I look over. He's sleeping comfortably. He ain't got no blanket on. All he got is a pillow. So
I think I had 2 fans on me too, because I normally sleep with a couple of fans on me too. So
well, I wasn't worried about the fans. I just knew it was cold. So I look over. I tap him. I say, "Hey, Josh. Hey, man, did you cut the heat off?" He's like, "Dude, it's hot in here. I couldn't take it." So you sacrificed me so you could become all right, bet. So I turned it up to like 70. I closed the window. I was like, that should be cool. The next week, the next day, the temperature dropped even more. I'm like, yo, this shit got to get. It's worse than being back home. So I turned the heat up to like 75, trying to compromise. 2 in the morning, same thing happened again. Heat off. Bro, why you keep turning off the heat? Now, mind you, I'm only 5'8". Josh is 6'2", 6'3". I can't really like just jump on him. So
I'm actually like 6'4", 6'5", by the way, Romel.
Okay, back then you grew an inch. So I'm trying to be. So I tried to compromise. I'm like, look, I'll give you the day if you actually let me sleep through the night with the actual heat. Oh man, I don't know if I can do that. All right, you know what? Fuck you. I'm turning on the heat anyway. Same thing happened again. So this is what? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So I just got tired of it. I'm like, you know what? Who looking for a roommate? Let me start asking. So I believe it was I got with Ritter. It was Ritter. And I'm like, hey man, is you looking for a roommate? You know if your roommate, can you get along with him? And he's like, man, he keeps turning off the heat, and I actually like to sleep in the heat. You don't say. So do I. Okay. You know what? Let me talk to your roommate. I'll talk to Josh. We'll see what we can do. Next thing you know, I'm rooming with Ritter. He's rooming with
Eric Brim.
Yeah, Big Brim. Okay, yeah.
Because when Brim came into the room with Ritter, you're like, this isn't your room. Your room's down there. And Brim came to my room, and I remember he's like, thank God there's air conditioning. He's like, we kept the window open and air conditioning on when it's literally snowing outside of Michigan. It's crazy.
And what's crazy was that's what I couldn't understand. But I'm like, man, they linemen, you know, big people give off heat to a degree, so I'm gonna let it slide. But like 3 days straight of freezing, I couldn't do it. And that's how he ended up. That's how we ended up switching rooms. That was because that last day we really got into a shouting match to the point where Evis Lewis was one of our teammates at the time. He came and knocked on the door, and he's like, "Yo, you guys good in here?" And I'm like, "No, we ain't good. This motherfucker keep turning off the heat. It's fucking cold outside."
Because what would happen is he turned the heat on. I'd wait till he falls asleep, and then I would wait till he fell asleep and he was snoring, and I'd pop that window open and turn the heat off. And then he'd wake up and turn the heat back, and I'd do the same thing after he fell back asleep.
Oh, it's like heat miser up in here.
Yeah, man. I'm like, dude, you can't keep doing that. That's how people catch pneumonia, especially in that part of the state. Especially in Saginaw, because Saginaw is just like Cleveland. You know, they right by the lake. It get cold.
Ooh, Lake Michigan area.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, man, we gotta figure something out. And like I said, Evis came and knocked on the door. And he's from, I believe he's from New York. And he's like, yo, you guys good? I'm like, no, we ain't good. He keeps turning off the heat. It's cold in here, man. I can't deal with this. And then I went downstairs, and Evis had caught me back in the hallway. He's like, yo, why don't you just ask him to switch rooms with you? And I was like, all right, you know what? That's a damn good idea. That's what I'm going to do. So, that's the heat story. Because I remember this. We were going to tell you about it, but yeah, that was the heat story. That's how he met Brim. That's how I got room with Ritter, who was a great guy. He was actually the reason I found out who the hell Kings of Leon were.
Man, that's great. Yeah. Man, so speaking of which, so I'm going to say officially, Josh, it's nice to meet you. Yeah.
Nice to meet you too.
Because, man, I'm telling you, the first time I heard the story, it was no names attached to it. Nothing. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, one day maybe I'll end up meeting this guy. So I met this guy.
Oh, I can only imagine how many people he tells about that.
You know what? I've only told like 3 people that story.
Yeah, there's only a few. Yeah, it wasn't that many.
Because that's like like you would say, in my career, that was a dark time in my life because of that experience. Like I did not, like from then on, because after I left Saginaw, I ended up going to Canton, and they were trying to make me stay in a hotel, and I'm like, no, I'm not staying in no hotel. Y'all only an hour away. I can just drive down because I didn't trust nobody. So everywhere I went after that, I was like, no, I'm not going. If you got me in a hotel, it better be with somebody skinny because I'm not rolling with no big dudes.
Oh, man.
So that's the deep story. Okay, y'all win the if I'm not mistaken, y'all win the UIFL that year. And great squad. Next year you go back, and I believe y'all went back to back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And then
we got this one. That's this one right here, the second one.
Oh yeah.
And then you change league and go back to the CIFL, which was a good move at the time. At least I thought.
Actually, our owners bought the CIFL. If you remember,
yeah,
Stu and Jim actually bought it.
I forgot about Stuart. I gotta get in touch with him. Stuart Schweiger. I do. Yeah, right. I do remember that. So Stuart Schweiger, who was a former Raider, ended up buying the CIFL, and they end up making that move. And y'all have a rivalry with Erie. That was like hands down one of the best rivalries in all of the indoor football leagues. What was that year like for y'all going against Erie and, you know, basically turning that into the CIFL's best rivalry?
Oh, it was good, except when they beat us when we were trying to go for a third one by 1 point. on Mother's Day back in 2013. I mean, the cool part of that third year, I guess that made it a big rivalry. Our quarterback, the third season, I didn't really see eye to eye, but we got along by the end of the season. It was one of those relationships that he just needed to get smarter and trust his offensive line and not be – you don't be mean to the hand that feeds you, you know what I mean? So if someone's blocking and protecting you, I don't think you want to be on their bad side. I used to tell him all the time. He got smarter eventually, you know. But I think it made a big rivalry was when we got him on our team because, you know, that was Erie's quarterback the 2 years before that when they were going to like the championships and stuff like that. And he came to Saginaw, and, you know, it came down to Erie and Saginaw, of course, in the championship. They actually had the advantage, so they got home field. They always played Sundays at like afternoons, like 2 p.m., which sucked because we always played Friday and Saturday nights. So that was a little bit of a disadvantage too, plus being on the road. So obviously we stayed in Erie that night before. That's why I said Lima and Erie are my two worst places to ever play a football game. Just couldn't seem to win a game there, you know. And I mean, you played the indoor game, Romel, and the traveling and stuff like that, the bus rides, they weren't ever the most comfortable. It's not like you're taking a private jet to an arena or something like that. It's definitely a different situation. You know, some teams travel a little bit better than others, but you know, you had to basically play the hand you were dealt, basically, in an arena. And then, so it was just it was a unique situation. Erie, they just got this brand new stadium, this arena built. I think it was like a $30 million arena or something like that. And indoor, that's a pretty nice arena. It's not no $5 billion like the LA's and Las Vegas, you know, the new stadiums, but I think it was a $30 million project they were doing. The cool part about that, because it was made by concrete, and I don't know if you know about what concrete, but, you know, the noise definitely, it ramps up big time. So, you know, I know Mother's Day, and because it was Mother's Day, the crowd wasn't huge, but they probably had about 3,000 to 5,000 fans, and it probably hurt. You probably thought there was 50,000 fans there. It was that loud. And being center, it's kind of hard to hear the snap count. Sometimes you're just guessing it, just because you've done it so many times, so you sort of know your quarterback snap count. And I'm not gonna lie, there's multiple times that Erie was so loud I couldn't hear the snap count. I really guessed when I was snapping the football, and I was just hoping it was right on time because I think I actually had one offsides as a center, and everyone's like, "How do you get offsides as a center?" But if the receivers aren't close enough to the line of scrimmage and you snap the football, it's an offsides on the center, actually. And, of course, I fortunately got one of those. So, and the Erie, the game that haunts me the most, the game I think of the most, I can't even really remember the championship games I won. It's the one that I lost. That one I was talking about Mother's Day, lost by 1 point. And this is a offensive nightmare. We were the number one offense in the league. Erie had the number one defense in the league. It was 30 seconds of the game. Erie ran out of timeouts. Saginaw has no timeouts. 30 seconds on the 10-yard line. They stopped us on 4 downs. Oh. So that's why I tell you this is a true thing is defense wins championships in my mind.
Yeah, they do. They do. And what's crazy about that is I never had a problem with Erie. My problem was always with Marion. I guess because I spent most of my career in Marion in some way or another. So, you know, I remember Marion set up more than I do Erie's. I just remember Erie had the stage with the cheerleaders sitting up there, and they would do little dances to mess with you from time to time. And going down to Erie, you have one end that's just completely closed off by this 6-foot wall, and then the other end got this DJ with these 2 big-ass speakers playing shitty music for no reason, and the crowd got bullhorns, cowbells. It's like, who would have played in that? Like, that was honestly the worst. Erie was cool. Marion was like the worst experience for me because you can't hear. The sideline is basically the stand for all players.
You know, I played for Marion, right, Romel?
When did you play for Marion?
In 2012. I actually signed with them before I went back to Saginaw. I was going to school full time. I was working full time and playing arena football. And so this is why I tell young athletes never let a girl hold you back, because I stayed home because of a girl. And what actually happened, we broke up, and my heart really wasn't for Marion, because that's why I didn't really have that same brotherhood like I had in Saginaw. And you could just feel it. And I was driving 2 hours there, 2 hours back every day. It just wasn't a fun like thing for me, everything. And I remember I played our first game, and I went from being all league to they had me coming off the bench, and that didn't really work well with me. And how do you go from all league? And I knew I was better than the guys they had in front of me, but because they were vets for the team, they didn't want them mad at them, so they had me come off the bench playing either center or right guard. And I remember Tommy Jones called me, and I was like, I looked at how Saginaw did their first game in 2012. And they won 60, I think it was 62-31. And I was like, oh, they don't need my help. And Tommy calls me. He's like, hey, if I could work out a deal for you to just play games or just come up, like for the first 5 weeks, come up for practices. After that, just come up for games strictly. Would you be willing to come play? And plus, they helped you out with gas and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm all in. And I remember I got out of my contract with Marion. I went back up to Saginaw, and I never looked back. Because actually, I called my buddy Eric Brim, that's the roommate that Rommel switched out. And, rip Eric Brim, he did pass away a few years ago. Actually, I got 2 years ago, I got him tattooed on my arm with the Saginaw logo and everything. But I remember calling him and saying, hey, let's go back to Saginaw. He's like, all right, I'll be there tomorrow. And literally, we decided to go. And I felt bad because they had to cut 2 people. And, you're thinking about it, if you won, 62-31, you're thinking you have job security at that point. You just blew out a team. You doubled their score. And I remember Eric actually got to the apartment before they had an apartment this year for us instead of the hotel that we stayed at the first year. And I remember Eric got there. I got this big guy. He's like, are you Josh? He's like, no. He's like, you're the one taking my spot? And he's like, no, that's my buddy that's on his way up here. And he's like, yeah, I just, that's the part of the game that's it's cutthroat. You want the best players, you know what I mean? So, and if you have a quarterback that played in the NFL, the CFL, the AFL, pretty much every league that ends with L, he's been in and he's won championships. You're gonna have what he wants in front of him. You know what I mean? So, and Tommy had it like that up in Saginaw, and he wanted me and Brim there, and we were there.
Tommy had it anywhere he went. Let's just be honest. Tommy was one of Tommy holds it. From what I know, Tommy holds at least 3 passing records. At least 3 passing records in every league he's played in, except the NFL that I can remember.
Yep.
So when you got a quarterback he
got picked up and signed when the Bengals drafted Carson Palmer. I know that's a long time ago and everything, but Tommy was signed as a free agent then, and he told me stories about that too. But then he played the CFL, then the AFL, and I think when the season of the AFL, because he was playing CFL because that's in the summertime and springtime. Then he'd go in the AFL, that's like the fall and wintertime. And that's how he made all of his money throughout the year and stuff like that. And basically, he tore his knee up. But then, obviously, when you have an arm and a can, because he was, I think, our rookie year, Rommel, Tommy was like 31 or 33 years old or something like that. So he was an older vet already.
Man, Tommy looks 40. He used to act. I said, when I met Tommy, he looked 40. I used to ask Coach Foster because Coach Foster knew him, and I'm like, Coach, man, are you sure Tommy's like in his 30s? Because he looked 45. Like, he's got a buzz cut, he kind of pudgy, but then that was around the time he did blow up his knee. He didn't really work out like he wanted to. But I was like, man, y'all sure? Because he looked kind of old. He's like, no, he's in his 30s.
Yeah.
He work out. He blew up his knee. So I was like, okay. Now, what's life like for you now after retirement?
I don't know about you, Rommel, but my body's banged up. Fortunately, I have a bad back, bad knees. I'm overweight now. I work a desk job. The real life, I remember my father, because I took 8 years to get my bachelor's degree. And, I was taking a couple classes at a time. And I kept remembering, because I played 5 years of arena. And I remember like the 3rd year, I was like, I sort of want to start real life, get that big boy's job and everything. My father, as a professor at 2 different community colleges, literally looked at me. He's like, Josh, you can only play football as long as your body can hold up, but you can work the rest of your life. And I was shocked to hear that out of a professor, to be honest with you. You think he'd be like, hey, you need to start life, you need to start a family kind of thing. Now, I live in Avon Lake where I graduated high school. I work right now with COVID. We work from home. So I got my little office set up. I work in sales. I started working out at the beginning of the year. I lost like 40 pounds, but then I re-hurt my back, and then I haven't been able to work out, so I probably gained that and plus more. So right now I just need I'm trying to get my body healthy right now, so it's healed, so I can start working out again. I'll say right now, life, wise, I can't complain too much. You know what I mean? So I got health. I still have a job. Throughout this craziness, I can't complain too much. I'm just thankful, basically, you could say.
I do have one more question. And Ronnie, I forgot because we should have brought this up before Life After Football. But back in 2014, I had made it. 2013, 2014, I had made it my business. I was like, all right, I can't play arena football too much no more. My breathing ain't where it was after the accident. But I'm gonna make a last ditch effort to bring a team to Cleveland, and we ended up bringing the Patriots to Cleveland. And be honest, it was a damn good team, and we would have won the championship had it not been for the owner.
Oh my, Eichard, guy from Marion.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you this question: do you miss the Patriots at all?
I miss the players. I don't know if you knew this from Mel, but I helped recruit basically the whole team. And Saginaw basically had an open checkbook for me to come back for the 4th year in a row, and I turned it down because I basically helped recruit. Even though I knew I was skeptical about the ownership with Eichard, which we all don't know where he is because he owes a lot of people money right now. But I don't miss him, but I miss the players, the team. Because I'll be honest, I don't know a closer brotherhood that I had than with the Patriots, except for Saginaw. But, with John Murray, Chris Saunders, both that offensive, I don't know if I've ever played with a better offensive line than those two next to me. And just the teammates. And you could just tell because, we lost our first game, and then we came back, and we were in New York, and we came back, and we won the second game. I think we were, I want to say either 4-1 or 5-2, and we were tied for first going into it. And if we would have played out, I think we would have had a chance to win the championship that year. And it's the saddest part because I know there's a lot of guys out there that really wanted it. And, I don't know, but Eichard got a little – I don't know if that year you knew this, but Tommy called me before our season started, asked me to go down to Marion to play one game. And, Eichard was, being a little bit, weird to me. So I said, screw it, and I decided to go play the one game. I remember him driving right to the stadium. He's like, I got to release you and everything. I'm like, why? Our season hasn't even started. I'm like, first off, my contract hasn't even started yet. Training camp hasn't started. I could do whatever I want as a free man right now and everything. I just think he was too much of a control freak. You know what I mean? But player-wise, I still am friends with multiple of those guys on that team, and I guarantee I'll be friends with them for a very long time. And, we had a great team to literally put a team around with just players in the local Cleveland area. I think that was incredible how good we were because we had no housing. We had a huge disadvantage that we couldn't have out-of-state players. We had to play with guys that we had in the Cleveland area. And that should there show you how good of the athletes we have in the Cleveland area.
And thankfully, we had enough vets on the team that actually knew the game.
Mm-hmm.
We had a damn good offensive coordinator, had a damn good defensive coordinator. Coach Carr was our special teams coach. We had a squad that year, man. I just like you, I miss the team. I don't miss the ownership. I miss the team. And what's crazy was that we were actually selling out the multiplex at the Word, Ronnie. We were selling that place out.
Selling it out though.
Only 800 people could actually fit in the
900, Ramel.
I thought it was 8.
No, I don't know if you knew this, but I told Eichard I wouldn't play the next game unless he let me do the marketing and collect all the ticket money. My ex at the time, her father held on to the money after the game because literally, he was telling us about all this money that's coming in. And before I gave him the money for the game, he's like, Josh, either I pay this and we play for free, or we're done. I'm like, we can't keep playing if you don't even have money to cover insurance. You're basically lying to all of us players saying if someone goes tears an ACL that they don't have insurance, they'd be screwed. And I don't think he really thought about the liabilities and stuff like that. And I don't think he cared because in his mind he was running away by anyways. Because I don't know if you remember Fred Johnson. Actually, after I graduated college, I actually moved down to Columbus with him for a year. He got my first sales job out of college, and I was roommates. And I know Iker took him for over 10 grand.
Man.
Just so we could play. And that's why I actually just mailed Fred my Patriots jersey. I was like, you've earned this more than I had. You got a little bit more money. I'm like, here's your $10,000 jersey. So
yeah, and that, it was crazy about that was because the uniform itself was so crappy. The colors were great.
Oh yeah,
the colors were great. The uniforms were crappy as shit, and we made it work. Hey, that was the best part about it. Everybody came together up until we couldn't take it anymore. So we were like, I think we were like 5-1, and all we had to do was win the last game, and we would have clinched a spot in the championship. And everything just fell apart. Everything, nobody wanted to play anymore, and that was the sad part.
That's hard to hear, man. Especially with a bunch of guys from the Cleveland area too. Because remember how coming up, we always said, okay, Cleveland being so big, and having all these different schools that everybody was going to or whatever, we didn't have that luxury of being like in a town where everybody went to the same 1 or 2 high schools and, same middle school, all that stuff. And we kept saying, like, throughout the years, what would it be like if we all were at the same damn school on the same team? Man, you want to talk about titles? Bro.
And that's basically what the Patriots were. Abe Taylor came from Tech. Geno came from Tech. Josh, John, and Chris Saunders were the best linemen in the league, literally. DJ Dale Barney, he was the best quarterback.
We had Curtis Terry too.
Oh man, he killed that dude. We had him on the show back over the summer. We don't count that one because he left us for a better deal. He killed somebody and left us for a better deal.
Yeah.
I still got that picture where he kills the quarterback at the Rochester game. I was man. That was the squad though. Kurt, Geno, Fred Poole, like we had those guys. Like if everybody would have stayed together, Iker would have just been honest from the jump. Championship. That would have been a championship nobody could have took away from us because we earned it.
Because I kept on telling him, like, you need a bigger arena. He's like, it costs more. But I'm like, you can make more money from tickets if you can sell out. So you're right here. You're stopping at the max. We're selling out games at 900 people a game, and you're still not breaking even. So you're never going to be able to break even. And I think he was a manager at GMC. I'm like, dude, you're not going to be able – I've heard from, like, good resources, you need about a good $100,000 to start a team in an indoor league. And that's it. And that's being cheap. I mean, most people say you need about $250,000 to $500,000 to start a team and be legit and, make people want to come play for you. And that's the big thing. I remember our first game in Saginaw, everyone kept telling me we have to win this first game or at least make it fun to watch because people won't stop showing up. And I remember us winning with that last pick in the first game, and I think we won by 5 points, and it was very competitive, and it was fun to watch and very exciting. And we started almost selling out the whole Dallas Event Center. I mean, I think they could fit about – it was close to like 6,000 to 8,000 people, I think, in the game. So,
nice.
Long live the Patriots. Okay. So moving on from that, we are going to move on to baseball with Natalie. For those that don't know, the Major League Baseball collective have decided to absorb the Negro League stat from 1920 to 1948, and there's mixed reactions, arguably and understandably so. But Natalie, being our baseball correspondent, I wanted to hear what you knew and how you feel about it.
Okay, so when I first heard it, I wasn't quite sure what Major League Baseball's position was, what they were actually doing. I know they are honoring the 100th year of the Negro League. And when they said absorbing the statistics, I wanted to know if they were merging them with history of all leagues or so I was trying to understand how the stats were going to be. So once I did a little bit of research into it, my opinion on it is, and it's my opinion, that I feel that it does somewhat of an injustice to the Negro League, because I believe that the playing fields were not equal. So some of those stats, I think I looked up Josh Gibson as one of them today. So his strikeouts may have been recorded, but his walks weren't. So they didn't have the type of stat keeping that white players had. They didn't have conditions field like white players did. So I feel like they're trying to erase that part of history that in a century, people look back in the history books and they're going to see, the stats merged. And I don't really feel that it's the best way to honor them. What I believe they should do is acknowledge the league and give the Negro League and give the players, the descendants of the players, compensation. And there's no way to be able to even do that now. The statistics, yeah, they're just not, lined up. So the way I look at it is, I feel like it's somewhat politically driven. It lets the MLB say, we did our part. We tried to do something to, correct the situation. And I just don't think it's good enough. And so I had to do a little bit of research before I came to that opinion.
Okay. Real quick, Josh, we know the Browns are playing right now, and they're actually up 7-3 with 12:31 in the second to go. So we're going to let you enjoy the game, but it was great to have you on. You're always welcome back anytime. And, just take it easy on your back, man.
Hey, thank you guys. It's nice meeting you all. Natalie, Ronnie,
you too, Josh, man.
Talk to you, catch up. Hey, make sure your windows are closed tonight. I don't want you getting too cold and getting frostbite or anything there.
I got you. It'll be closed tonight.
And go Brownies.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Go.
Okay, that was our guest for the evening, Josh Pack. Natalie, to your response, I think this is good because, just to me, I didn't think it was fair that, you split everything up, because at the time, and I get it, racially, in America at the time, this was a time in sports, not just the world, but sports, where blacks weren't allowed to play with whites or lack thereof. And we had to do something to create, us having an avenue to play sports. I'm wondering how this is going to look when they actually get done with all the Negro League stats, because I want to see where everybody lies. Like, Satchel Paige did come from the Negro Leagues to play for the Indians. So I want to see, does his stat count, to what he already had and already achieved with the Indians, or are they just going to leave this in limbo? That's my biggest thing. And I don't know if they're going to leave it in limbo, but I want to see, how they play this out. Because we already know it's going to.
You're saying prior, are they going to merge them? And I wasn't sure if they were.
But I also want to see. Well, we already know it's going to be a shitstorm coming behind this, because the diehard fans, the diehard historians are all going to be like, this isn't how it's supposed to be. But it is also, to me, it's also still a fair thing to do, because imagine what happens if these same Negro League players were actually in the MLB before Jackie Robinson crosses the line. And that's the part where I'm wondering how this is going to play out, because it's interesting, to say the least. And the next question I have after that is, what took so long?
Yeah.
This isn't going to be an overnight process. We all know this. But my biggest question is, why did this take so long? because it's going to take years to do this, to tally everything up as it is. So that's my question. And how are they going to handle the shitstorm that's coming after they tally everything up?
Well, I'd be willing to guess they're not going to handle it well, because I don't think Major League Baseball handles hardly anything well, personally. The commission is not always the best, but in the future that could change. But I just don't see them handling, whatever's thrown at them well. And to be honest, to your question, what took them so long is I just think their hand was forced into it by, just things that have happened, and just this year alone. I think they felt pressure to do something that they thought would be enough, and they hope it will be. And I'm not sure, that it will be. And it's not something that's just going to go away. It's like you said, there's going to be a storm. It's going to snowball into, was this stat merge? Just like I said, strikeouts, a lot of the leagues, some of them, like I said, didn't have the capability to even keep the same type of stats. So what are you going to do there for players who arguably, would have had different stats, and there's no way to report on those? So I hope that they find a way. I'm not optimistic that they will, but I hope that they find a way to do it with honor and with taking the family, and some people into consideration when they are merging these stats and when they're finding a way to absorb, as they're calling it, the league. So that's how I see it. And I think they're being kind of vague. So, I have done some research on it, and I couldn't come up with an awful lot on it. So I've just based my opinion on what I think of their motivation behind it.
Yeah,
it's
I agree.
it's cool that you say that, Nat, because like for me, I felt the same way because I'm like, okay, well, like you said, there's a lot of history there. Stats aren't really, calculated the same way. And then on top of that, there's so many great players that we saw that made that jump from Negro Leagues to the majors. And it was cool because the Cleveland Indians played a big part in that, actually. Quite a few players that got their start with the Indians that came from Negro Leagues. So my thing is like, okay, looking at conditions, like you said, because looking at, first of all, going way back to, like League Park, mentioning that, because I grew up in I grew up in Ward 5, so I was next to Ward 7. But I remember going over there and going to a community center right down the street from League Park on Lexington Avenue, and just seeing what that looks like and how small that is and things like that. And it made me feel like I was back in that time, even going there just to play like a regular game, for one of the rec teams or whatever. And just thinking back, like, okay, I really hope that even after all that history and just growing up and hearing about this stuff, that they kind of find a way to do it justice. But like you said, I don't think it will happen. It just seems like this big movement, is going on right now, obviously, with regards to, of course, the name changes and, all the BLM stuff and that happening or whatever. It just seems like this is kind of just falling off of that. They kind of tabled this until the end of the MLB season because they may have had, plans to do that prior to or during or something like that. I was like, you know what, let's not interrupt now. Let's wait until everything's done. And once they're done and we're officially in the off season, they probably said, okay, now we can work on the Negro League part that we probably talked about prior to a year ago or whenever they decide to, move along with it. So I'm definitely interested in to see what happens or how they do incorporate these stats, but I just don't think they'll be able to really truly
Right.
do it justice, but able to say like, oh, well, we did it. We
Exactly. And that's what I think they're going to do is, well,
yeah,
shout it out there, that they did it. And my boyfriend and I were having a discussion earlier. His grandfather had played in one of the Negro Leagues, and he used,
nice.
a work glove as a catcher's mitt. So think of that. The equipment wasn't even on the same level. So
Wow.
it's like it's hard to absorb stats when it wasn't an even playing field. So and I would I want them to do something Major League Baseball that I feels like an honor. I just want it to be fair, and I want to see, as you said, Mel, how they're gonna handle what's ahead for them when they do merge these stats. And hopefully it's done fairly and justly, if it can even be done, and if it can't be, I hope they listen and acknowledge that as well.
Yeah, we'll see. It's gonna play out, so we'll see. I noticed everybody's on the bandwagon with the Browns right now, so we're actually gonna move from baseball to the NFL. Sunday Night Football. Just a quick update: the Browns are still leading 7-3, 6:48 left in the second, and New York is driving. Uh, let's. I want to bring this up because this came up in Natalie. This came up in our group chat, and I want to discuss this with both of you guys. And here's the overlay.
Okay.
And
that's Stephen A. Smith, right? Cleveland is the biggest threat to maybe.
Whoa.
Biggest threat to Kansas City. Okay.
I got a lot
down.
Now, before we get into this, I want everybody to know, yes, I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but I am also logical. And after hearing, because I went back and found the segment where Stephen A. said this on the morning show. After hearing this and analyzing and doing the backtracking that I normally do through the course of the week, I have to agree. But I want to hear you guys before I explain why I agree.
Okay, so they said the Cleveland Browns are the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, so here's how I feel about that. I will say that Kansas City, if they're looking at different teams in the playoffs, I do feel like they are going to probably take that game more serious than they would have in the past. I also feel as though, with regards to them being a threat, though, I mean, I would say definitely on the ground. Kansas City does have a decent run defense. It's not like the top, you know what I'm saying, of the top, but it's decent enough. But I do feel like when it comes to the different looks that Cleveland's been giving people, and in fact, like how we talked about, OBJ not being in the mix right now and what that looks like, and Baker having to actually spread the ball out, it does make it a little bit more difficult to figure out what he's going to do with it, especially if he has a chance to roll out and things like that and do what he normally is good at doing. I feel like it's a unorthodox approach to what they have to do defensively in order to try to stop them right now. You can't look at just like the regular game footage and go, okay, here's what different teams have done against this team. It won't be that simple. And I feel like that's a level where if they can get past the first round, then Stefanski may trust Baker a little bit more with some things that we haven't seen. So I do feel like for that reason that could work. And then, of course, we saw what they did with the Titans. The Titans were probably their biggest threat outside of Pittsburgh, in my opinion, this season. Of course, the Ravens were in the mix. I get all that, but they still put up points on the Ravens. When it comes to the Titans, though, this is a team where you literally have to keep Derrick Henry off the field. And I feel like their approach would be very similar if they were to play Kansas City and keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field. Now, what makes me nervous, though, is the Cleveland secondary. When you got speed out there like Tyreek Hill and McCole Hardman, go Dogs, and you got, Travis Kelce in the middle, and you got Sammy Watkins, and you got Cleveland secondary running around, unless Denzel Ward's in that game, that's ugly. Because my thing is like, and even tonight, I'm laughing at tonight with the game currently on because Sendeo's out, so I should be happy, right? But there's still – but here's the thing that people forget about this, man. This is something I hate to admit. Oh, my God, I hate to admit this. Sendeo is a good hitter.
when
He's
he's
a good
able to
hitter.
hit somebody.
When he's able to hit, he's a good hitter. Coverage is garbage. So the thing is, him not being in the game, okay, cool. I thought that would be like, kind of a help to them, but they're driving down the field, these guys, every time they have the ball. My thing is overall, it's just a secondary that scares me when it comes to that game. And we know that Mahomes can air it out and does distribute that ball pretty well. That's the only thing I will say. It makes me a little bit nervous about it. I do feel like Kansas City may not have faced as decent of a front seven with regards to how Cleveland plays their game with their front seven. But I don't know, man. To say they're the most or the biggest threat to Kansas City, they are a threat to Kansas City. I don't know about the biggest threat just because of that secondary. That's kind of where I'm like on the fence about it. I will say they are a threat, though. They are a threat to them. But biggest threat, I don't know if I can sign off on that.
Natalie, what say you?
Okay, so the way I look at it is Mahomes has weapons at his disposal that Baker just doesn't have in Kelsey, Tyreek Hill. If they can keep the run game with Chubb and Hunt, then possible if they can keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands as much as possible and keep the running game with Chubb and Hunt, then I think they could stand a chance. But I do not believe that they are the greatest threat. Kansas City themselves are the greatest threat to themselves. So I don't think that the Browns are the greatest threat to them.
Okay, I'm probably gonna get yelled at about this on here, but I don't care. But when this originally happened, we saw everything, and we saw it in the group chat. I went and looked at the segment, and here's why I agreed with what Stephen A. said. We've seen the Browns offense evolve from week 1 to now. And needless to say, that offense is scary. Granted, they had the ugly weather games, but that type of score and that type of game is expected when you're a cold weather team playing in that game. Now, I'm going to throw this stat out here because I actually wrote this, and the people that I was arguing with beforehand did not pay attention to this. After Monday night against the Ravens, the Browns are now 7-1 when scoring 40 or 35 points or more, and Baker only throws 1 or no interception. So when Baker is actually taking care of the ball and managing the game, they were 7-1 after losing to Baltimore.
Yeah, so keep the ball out of Baker's,
But at the
run
same
the ball,
time,
and that's how I think they'll be better.
At the same time, that also goes to show how explosive that offense is. Think about the games that they scored. They scored 35 points or more. Dallas, Cincinnati twice, the Titans, and with the Ravens, just to name a few. The fact that the Browns have the firepower to score at will and keep up with a team like Kansas City is why I agree. Not to mention, like I said, Baker and the Browns being 7-1. That's a hell of a stat. To be 7-1, you score 35 points or more, and your quarterback throws 1 or no interception. Defensively, no, it's not going to happen. We all know this because of the secondary. Secondary is the team's kryptonite. I get it. But when you look at it and you have a team that's able to score with you and not play from behind, that would scare any team. And I think
now when they were doing that offensive, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Were they already up? Because the Browns aren't typically good when playing from behind. I think in those games you mentioned, they had already had the lead.
Yeah, except for the Baltimore game because they
Baltimore won there.
They were playing from behind when Baker tied the game. The defense is what shit the brick and let Lamar Jackson get that pass off. But with that being said, the main component of that was that they can still score 35 points or more in any game, and the ball control is there. The passing game is there. You've got 3 really good tight ends, even though one or two are always hurt. But you got three really good tight ends. You have a rookie who's coming into his own, and you have a third-year receiver in Hollywood Higgins who's quiet, doesn't make a lot of noise, but when he does, it's usually a big play behind it. So when he said it, that was why I agreed. The offense is there, so there is not a problem there. The defense is why I say they would still be a threat, because I think in a game where you have everybody healthy on the Browns squad, I think that game turns into a shootout. Because if you look at Kansas City defense isn't what it was last year. We said this for the last year.
They definitely not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same defense from last year. That defense was holding people to 15, 20 points. Now they're actually giving up 20, 25 points a game. If you're giving up that many points and you're the possibility of you seeing a team that can score 40 points or more, you ought to be nervous. Because if they get past the first round, which I think they will, because between tonight and next Sunday, they have a chance to clinch, assuming they handle business against the Giants and the paper airplane. If they clinch, they're more than likely to see Buffalo.
Sorry.
It's great.
It's true. Well, shout out to the Jets anyway. They just got their first win against the Rams.
Yeah, I took the Jets defense in FanDuel today, so the paper airplane did me well. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you. I guess a little bit on that. I think it's just a little too strong when Stephen A. Smith said the biggest threat. I think. Well, he said might be. So I guess so. I mean, I totally believe it's possible any given Sunday, right?
Yeah.
But you know, I just don't know if I'd go as far to say as the best or the biggest threat, I guess, to them.
Well, like I said, the only reason
I agree with you though.
But like I said, the reason I agree was because of the offense. And I've been on teams who had a terrible defense, but our offense was so dynamic, you had to outscore it. And if you couldn't outscore it, and we happened to get a turnover or two, you were in trouble because we could turn that turnover into points. And that's what the Browns do really well. Whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, they still turn that turnover into some kind of point 60% of the time. And that's a great percentage to have going into a game against a team like Kansas City, the Titans, at the time, Dallas. Because you're gonna have to score points at some point. And I'm looking at it as if this were to happen, could Kansas City actually, come up with a defensive stop good enough to put a cushion of 14 points or more between them and the Browns?
True.
That's something that's a question that they haven't been able to answer. They had problems with the Saints today. I did not agree with them starting Drew Brees, but
Drew Brees is half dead with 10 broken ribs, punctured lung, and then you have Taysom Hill, and you didn't play Kamara, so I could kind of argue that game.
They actually played. Kamara played.
Well, I mean, they did play, but they didn't use him well enough, I don't think. But that's a whole nother thing we can get into about.
My thing was, like I said, it's a lot of questions there that have not been answered on the field by Kansas City. So that's why I feel that I agree with what he said, and I think to a degree he's right. Because we didn't think they were going to beat the Titans, and they came in and smacked the Titans around and held Derrick Henry under 50 yards. And that doesn't, in the 4 losses that they had, or the 3 that they had before the Browns, only 3 teams that did that. They held him under the 130 yards all game. So if this happens, and let's say for the sake of argument, because the current playoff picture looks like this, but I don't know, that might change. But the Browns play Buffalo, or would play Buffalo, in the opening round of the playoffs. So if they were to get past, them, there's a possibility they could either see Pittsburgh or Kansas City. I'm thinking they would end up seeing Kansas City. But
Yeah.
When you look at Kansas City this year and look at the body of work, yes, they've won games, but like everybody's been saying about Pittsburgh, their division's crappy outside of the Raiders. Their schedule has not been the strongest either, and their defense is not what it was last year when they won the Super Bowl. So if you put those three components in, can we as logical fans say that the Browns would actually get blew out? I wouldn't see it. Not to say that it's not possible, but with Cleveland's offense, I don't think it would happen. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, and speaking of, the path to the playoffs, if the Browns goes through Buffalo, next game or whatever, it just makes it as, their run game's not as much there, but their defense is sick pretty much, I think, in my opinion. And so, I think that's where they're, going to have Josh Allen. So they're going to have, I think that they may be a bigger threat to Kansas City than the Browns, the Bills. So,
well, when you got a space age robot playing quarterback, it does make sense.
That is true. And people gotta remember too, Allen is very good with his feet too.
Accurate, and he's more accurate than people give him credit for. If you
yeah, absolutely.
He is way more accurate than people gave him credit for. Especially coming out of Wyoming, I could understand why the scouts were like, but you're playing at a school who traditionally don't really produce good football players because
True.
Nobody takes them serious given the scenario of where they play. And it's like when you see Josh Allen, the Mountain West does have good players. Like, just call it what it is. But I think Buffalo would be a bigger threat than Cleveland. But if they were to be in a game where Cleveland has to score points and Buffalo has to score points, I trust Cleveland's offense more than I would Buffalo's because Buffalo's, it's not as consistent as the Browns were.
True. And on top of that,
but just the point to defense, I think maybe would the Bills have that part, and Josh Allen, I think comparably is as good of a running back quarterback as Lamar is. So you have that to look at too. So, but didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Smith.
No, you're good. I mean, the thing about the Bills that I look at too is that's one of those teams where you got to put them away early. You can't let them go back and forth with you all game because if you let them do that, they will come out with the win because of that D. But if you're one, it has to be the same approach that you took with Tennessee and some of these other games where the Browns would literally have to be up with like 4 touchdowns before the first half is over with, something like that to, get that edge on them. Because the thing is, you figure teams will now have that in the back of their mind because Cleveland has had multiple games where they've scored 30 or more points in the first half. The first half. And then second half, it's like, okay, let's keep the heat up. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's see if we can score 60. Like, let's just do that. You know what I'm saying? Because I watch these games and I'm like, how do you go in the locker room with 32 points, end up winning with only 37? Or something like that. It just drives me nuts. And I'm like, keep that pressure on them. I get it. You want to pull back a little bit because you're like, okay, we're up by as many points. We want to kind of run the clock out more and stuff like that. But the thing is, once you start throwing the ball more again, you stop at the clock, and all of a sudden you're getting these quick scores going down the field, which was something else I had an issue with in watching that Baltimore game. That last 2 minutes, I'm like, y'all went down the field too quick. And it was to the point where it's like you gave Lamar more time to have the ball again. And then you don't ice. And then why do you not call timeout and try to ice the most accurate kicker in NFL history?
Doesn't make any sense.
What the hell? Like 2 timeouts with a minute left? Come on, man. 2 timeouts. And you're not going to ice this man or at least try to? The most accurate kicker and one of the best kickers, if not the best kicker, with 55-plus yards. I was like, come on, man. Oh, my God.
In hindsight, I honestly – I see where Stefanski was coming from as a coach. And I got his thinking with that, with not icing the kicker. Because if it's me and I know he's gonna make it, because he's the most accurate kicker in the NFL, I need time on the clock so we can get down and see what we can do as well. So I need time out to make sure we have a chance to put one in the end zone or kick a field goal. I would feel the same way too. I'm not questioning that because in the heat of the moment, if I'm looking at it and let's just say for the sake of argument, you got the most accurate kicker on your team. All right, he's gonna make this. Whether I try to ice him or not, he's gonna make this. So I need time on the clock. Baker, I'm leaving you with 2 timeouts. You got to do something. But it didn't play out that way. So, that was one of those what if scenarios. But
Right.
I feel like there was with the Browns this year's offense, I think they're still pissed off from last year in that I think a lot of the team is thinking like we could have did this shit last year with Freddie had we taken it as serious like we do with Stefanski. And it's showing on the field. Like granted, they're giving up the leads in the second half, but the fact that they're so explosive on offense in the first half and in parts of the third quarter, it's like, do you really want to see this team in the playoffs?
And they're actually pretty good fourth quarter when they're behind. They've been driving the ball a lot.
Right. And one thing I do think, though, we were talking about for a second, the front seven, I was just thinking about the last game, so Lamar disappears, runs down to do whatever he needs to do in the locker room. McSorley comes out and he, the Browns didn't really look that great against McSorley. And then, Lamar comes right back in that game and they just let him run down there and score. So that gives me a bit of pause as if, they're capable to do that. I mean, I just think they didn't do a good job of stopping McSorley, and then they let Lamar just come right back out onto the field and Superman it.
Well, let's look at reality. Not to cut you off, Ryan, but let's look at reality. McSorley is not good against McSorley. So I wouldn't even count that. My thing was, the Browns have as much as people don't want to believe this, the Browns have a great front seven. And what I mean by that is that front four is so good, it makes the linebackers have to do less. The problem with that is when your front four is doing that much against a quarterback such as Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, or Jalen Hurts, even though Jalen didn't play against the Browns with the Eagles. But when you face quarterbacks like that, you don't have an answer for him because you don't have anybody fast enough to keep up with him. And that's not necessarily the Browns' fault. That's a scheme thing. That's not any one particular player's fault. That's a scheme thing. If your scheme is to put pressure on a quarterback like Lamar Jackson to make him beat you with his arm, and then the pocket breaks down, because that's gonna happen. You can't just try to spin off or, keep him closed in forever, because at some point pocket's gonna break down, and everybody's already out in coverage or in the zone. That's not necessarily the linebacker's fault. That's just the way the scheme played out after pushing him out of the pocket. So, and remember, Lamar Jackson was sacked 4 times in that game. He was sacked 4 times.
That's true too.
So he
was sacked.
So they got to him.
4 times, but
they got to
I
him.
just think they'll have that same issue with Mahomes. They're going to have to get to him if we say that about McSorley. Is just what I was thinking. But they did sack Lamar 4 times. I will give you that.
And
the
only team that sacked him 4 times outside of the Browns this season is, guess who? Pittsburgh.
Right.
True.
So if you do that, I think you have a chance against a team like Kansas City in the playoffs. Dare I say Buffalo?
Right. It makes me keep it on the running, on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just feel like too defensively, what makes me nervous is I think they'll make this adjustment, but it was the first time that we got a chance to see with as good as that front four is, if they play overly aggressive, what can happen too? Because the
Yeah.
thing is, Garrett was like, out for blood and that, and there were times where him and Vernon were not containing the outside. And as a defensive end, formally, I can tell you, as soon as you do that, or you allow yourself to get that chip on the inside, and that play goes to the outside like that, and you're on the opposite hash mark or whatnot, man, and next thing you know, it's like, oh, that was 8 yards. Damn. Okay. And then it's like,
Yeah.
if you get someone like Lamar in the open field, or someone who can, be dynamic like that and make all these different things to shift and whatnot to make you miss, and having that much field in front of you to kind of see the vision of what's going on and who's coming at you, that can be very dangerous too. I feel like they'll make that adjustment though. I'm not going to say that it'll happen again, but that was something that I saw that gave up a lot of big plays when it came to them playing the Ravens the other night, is because of little things like that. So I'll say technically they'll need to, get that under control going into like the playoffs and whatnot, because these other teams that they'll be facing at that time frame will not, allow them to have that opportunity to stay, in the game with them. I feel like their next test of that will be Pittsburgh when they play them again in the season. But at the same time, outside of that, once they go into the playoffs, though, it's live or die. You only get that one shot, and they have to make sure that they're on top of it when that opportunity comes.
Yeah. That's a good point. That is a very good point. Okay, we're gonna move on to our last topic and me and Ronnie's favorite topic. And
Oh,
Nat, because you got a Buckeye shirt on and a Buckeye
Oh.
hat, or you got
I may have to cut out because I've been on so long, but
Don't.
I'll give you a second. And I have a Buckeyes hat on, but I didn't watch a game yesterday, so I don't probably have a lot to add for it. So I knew you were gonna say that.
Oh,
But you can,
you know what? We'll have to get your thoughts on this college football ranking. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, I think we should probably just do that next time. See how I'm trying to just politely see myself out here, without
okay.
Goodbye.
Well,
Oh.
if you got to go, that's fine. But we appreciate you being on, and
Yeah, thanks,
great
man.
having you.
No, it was great with both you guys. I appreciate you having me on. And I have to go, but hopefully you'll have me on again. And I hope you guys have a good night.
You
You
too.
too.
You're always
Thank you so
welcome
much.
back.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll
man.
try to
problem.
shut this off here. All right. Thanks.
Take care.
Okay, that was also our correspondent with baseball, Natalie. She gave us some input on baseball as well as the Browns. But with that being said, we are going to switch to the NCAA and Championship Saturday.
Man. Ooh.
Okay, so
Ooh.
not going to get into the big thing. Not going to get into the big thing just yet. But I'm going to go run down the championships from Friday to Saturday. So this is how Championship Saturday played out. In Conference USA, UAB took the title. The Pac-12 championship. Oregon takes it from USC.
Ah.
The MAC, Ball State would run away with that one over Buffalo. The Big Ten, we already know Ohio State comes back and pretty much runs through Northwestern in the second half. Oklahoma, still kings of the Big 12. That's no secret.
Mm-hmm.
SEC, we already know Bama. The ACC, I will give Josh his due. Josh Under, I will give him his due. He did say that Clemson would come back stronger, and they did. They ended up taking the ACC title, even though I thought Notre Dame should have put up a better fight because they had already beat the number one team at the time. But you got to it out. The Mountain West. Here's where it gets interesting. San Jose State finishes with an undefeated season, beating Boise State in the Mountain West title game.
Wow.
The Sun Belt Conference game was canceled due to COVID, and in the American Conference, Cincinnati kicks a late field goal to beat Tulsa, and they finished with an undefeated season as well. This pretty much played out like we said it would, with the exception of the Pac-12 and maybe Well, the Pac-12 and the ACC, of course. Um, the surprises to me were San Jose State and Cincinnati because Tulsa has a good team, and we
Mm-hmm.
knew they were going to have a good team, and it was going to be a tough game for them, even though they were supposed to play them back-to-back weeks in the last game of the regular season and conference championship. What was your take from Championship Saturday?
For me, like you said, Oklahoma getting it. I saw that. Clemson, I had them beating Notre Dame, not by that many points, but I had them beating them. So that was cool. Bama, we already knew Bama was going to beat Florida. I didn't think it would be that close in score, though. So that was like, oh, okay, cool. Like Florida putting up that many points, you know what I'm saying? Because they haven't done that since what, week 2? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like, where's the team been all year? Anyway, moving forward, San Jose, them beating Boise. I didn't see that one coming, to be honest. I felt like it was going to be, probably Boise coming out on top. I felt like they were going to be pissed off because of the loss they did take to BYU. And I felt like they wanted to probably redeem themselves by getting that conference championship. So that was my take as to why. I'm not saying that, San Jose State is a bad team or that they didn't have the ability to beat Boise, but I just felt like they had that edge, coming in. But the fact that San Jose State had opportunity to go undefeated and to win this championship, I felt like was a statement for their program. So, hats off to them for that. I was probably the most surprised by the 3-point win by Cincy against Tulsa. Tulsa's a good team, but I'm like, wow, down to 3 points like that, okay, and I don't know if that is one of the things that the committee looked at all. If they did look at it, I have no idea. When it comes to the rankings and all that for the college football playoff, and then of course, Ohio State took care of business in the Big Ten championship. That game looked a little sketchy at first, but they made some adjustments by not letting Northwestern score a second half, so that was cool. I felt like overall things pretty much played out the way we thought they were going to, with the exception of, well, I don't know if I should say the exception of Pac-12, but with them screwing that up, because the thing is, we already knew if USC lost or with Colorado losing their game, obviously when they lost earlier in the season, that we probably wouldn't have a Pac-12 representative this year, which we see happening again. So there's that. But I would say this: looking at these championships. Oh, I'm sorry, and then Ball State. I mean, we had a running joke when I was at Toledo about Ball State because they're located in Muncie, saying that they like to munch on balls. Whatever. I had to put that out there. I'm sorry, because nobody respected Ball State back then. So, whatever. But shout out to them for winning the MAC. You know what I'm saying? It's cool. I ain't gonna hate too much. What I do?
Not to cut you off, but I found out something interesting about the Ball State
What's up?
this year. Are you familiar with former WWE wrestler Michael Tarver?
Mm-mm.
Okay, if you remember the Nexus back in the day when they beat up John Cena.
Yeah, I remember that.
He was part of that. His son was actually starting running back for Ball State last night when Ball State won MAC championship. Tyler Evans.
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. That's what's up. That's cool though.
Yeah. Shout out to
All
Tarver and Tyler Evans for, producing such great talent and winning the MAC championship last night over that.
Man, cool, man.
Wait. I did want to show you.
Oh yeah, go ahead. What you got?
I did want to show you something. Now that I know how to do this overlay, this particular post I saw on Facebook was due to yesterday and how the Big Ten championship was going. I tried to cross the names out because I didn't want to call nobody out per se, but just these two comments and then the actual post is what I wanted you to see.
Ohio State and Notre Dame should both be booted. Whoo! Ooh! Somebody! Ooh! Woo! Both? Ooh! Okay. Wow! Wow, both of them though. Okay,
And
I
then
agree with one of them maybe, but both. You,
and
who?
here's the funny
Hmm.
part. Here's the funny part about this. Somebody else I knew had made a post saying, A&M should get a shot. But I made a comment that said, why would you put them in? Because they lost to you lost to Bama,
Yep.
and you lost by 28 to Bama. Okay,
Yep.
that was your only loss of the season. At the same time, A&M beat Florida. Okay, fine. And Florida ends up beating Georgia, which is their ranked win.
Mm-hmm.
And then Florida, who's primed to be in the conference championship, loses the week before to LSU. So my question that I never got an answer to was, should A&M really be in after taking an ass whooping to Bama? And then Florida, your signature win, Florida losing to LSU. What does that say? Because he kept saying you're only as good as your last game. Okay. Well, if that's the case, by that logic, your last game doesn't make you look good because you lost to an unranked defending national champion LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're A&M, that was your signature win. So they just made you look bad by losing to a terrible LSU team.
Absolutely.
And then your best game outside of Florida, you keep saying, we didn't lose. The A&M didn't lose that bad, but you lost by 28. No matter how you swing it, if you lose by anything more than 10 points, what argument do you have? So you're telling me, yeah, and I was trying to get them to answer this. So you're telling me, and this is what I was saying to them. So you're telling me that because you lost by 28 to the number 1 team,
Mm-hmm.
you beat the number 7 team, and then they lose to an unranked team, you still should get a shot? Never got an answer. Never got an answer. And I was kind of mad about that because, if you're going to make this argument, explain why you feel they should be in. Just because they're right behind Ohio State or they're right behind whoever? I need more than that. And maybe this is just me. I need more than that. Yes, A&M is a good team. If you put them in the top 4, do they beat Clemson? Do they even have a good showing against Clemson? Assuming, because the lineup, the matchups go 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. So if Bama, Ohio State's already number 3 at this point, winning the Big Ten title. So if A&M were to get that 4th spot, do they have a good showing against Alabama again?
Here's the thing. If we go off of a team, let's say, for the sake of argument or for the sake of the quote that's out there about you being as good as your last game, that would be the only reason why you would think to maybe match them up again, only because Bama gave up, 48 or 47 points, something like that, to Florida. That's the only way you would even think to match them up again in the first round. But let's look at this too. For the last, 5 years, Saban in the college football playoff is not the coach that you necessarily want to go up against, with the exception of the loss they took to OSU, right? Outside of that, that ain't the guy you want to go up against because he learned from that game.
Oh, yeah.
He learned from that game. Oh, did he learn? And this is a position he's been in multiple times now. The thing is, the Alabama team you see now is not the same team that beat Texas A&M even. Going back to that game, okay, first of all, they've had to make adjustments because, remember, their other star wide receiver they lost for the rest of the year is not with them. They had both of those guys when they play A&M. They've made those adjustments to the point where they have more to look out for, or the next guy that's up has stepped up.
Mm-hmm.
So when you put A&M back in that situation with them, all of a sudden what that does is it creates a situation where A&M will have to show that they can have a shootout with Bama, which is something that they haven't shown. They can't do that. They can't do that. They cannot do that.
I know this and you know this, but the people that I saw and were trying to discuss this with on Facebook weren't giving that answer. And I'm glad that you gave me that answer because I know I'm not crazy now.
No, absolutely not.
You say,
I mean, think about it too. If they're that determined to have both Notre Dame and OSU be out,
who do you put in there?
Who do you put in? Who are you gonna put in? Who left? You're not gonna put Coastal Carolina in. You ain't gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna bump Cincy up. You're gonna have Cincinnati play Clemson in the first round. You really want to do that? Do you really want to do that? Whoever put that post, do you want to put Cincinnati up against Clemson in the first round? No. Do you want to put, need I say, Georgia up against Clemson or Alabama in the first round? No. Who do you have left? Who do you have left? Indiana? Indiana.
No. Indiana's not ready yet.
Do you want to kill these teams? Like, this is the exact reason why they had, I feel like the committee this time around was forced to stick with the 4 that they have in there now. They were forced to do that. Looking at these other teams that were next in line or who could have been in there, nobody wants to see a first round blowout. We don't want to see that. And the thing is, when you put Notre Dame up against Bama, it's a different dynamic, though. I do feel like Bama could still come out on top of that game, but I feel like there's going to be some things that Notre Dame this season, will show Bama that they have not seen yet, and in past years of what Notre Dame has done. Of course, yes, they haven't fared well against the SEC opponent. Well, I'll take that back. They haven't really played many SEC teams. They are 0-3 against Georgia, but they have not played many SEC teams. And then going up against like Bama right now, this is probably one of the best years that Notre Dame has had in recent years. I will give them that. I'm not going to discredit them. They did knock off Clemson that first time, which is why they're still in the playoff, because the only loss you had this season is to Clemson in the ACC championship game. Right, who you already beat. Because you're not going to put North Carolina in. Like, come on, man. Like, if we go down the list of teams right now, there's not one team you can put in that's going to be worthy opponent to one of the other top 2.
I got one for you on that one.
Right. Exactly. Come on, Skip. Come on, Skip. You can't do that. You can't do that.
And the thing that bothered me about this is why I don't like doing this argument over who should be in or who shouldn't be in without, like, I hate doing it through text. Let's talk about this, because I actually would like somebody's thought, but nobody would give me a logical thought. Okay, let's look at the reality. We'll start in the Big Ten title game. We'll start in the Big Ten period. I saw a comment that said Ohio State didn't belong because they had less games. I don't know if everybody paid attention to this or not, but Alabama missed a couple games because let's look at reality. It's 14 teams in the SEC, which means they were guaranteed a 12-game schedule. Guaranteed, because they would have at least 3 crossover games or cross division games. So they were guaranteed 12 games.
And the SEC don't care about the players, bro. They don't care. They ain't canceling nothing. They postpone every single game.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. They only played 11, or they only completed
11. Yup.
Including the SEC title game. So that makes 11 games out of a guaranteed. So that means Alabama missed games. Let's travel to the ACC. Correct me if I'm wrong again. Didn't Clemson and Notre Dame miss out on games?
Yep, and it sure did.
And with the inclusion of Notre Dame, it's 14 teams in the ACC. So they were guaranteed 12 games.
Big conference play. It's different.
And they were guaranteed 12 games and missed at least 2. Let's go over to another Power 5 in the Pac-12. They were guaranteed. They were supposed to play divisional play or conference-only play. There's 2 divisions in the Pac-12, the North and the South. USC missed games. Oregon missed games. The North Division winner Washington couldn't even play because they had COVID issues.
Yep.
So
they had to forfeit.
They had to basically forfeit and give Oregon the spot in order to make that championship game happen. Not to mention, USC missed the game. Colorado missed the game.
Yep.
Let's look at the Big 12. Iowa State missed the game.
Sure did.
Oklahoma missed the game. I'm not crazy with this. And then finally in the Big 10, Ohio State missed the game. The Ohio State-Michigan game got canceled because Michigan had COVID issues.
Mm-hmm.
But rescheduled a game with Iowa, or scheduled a game with Iowa the following week. And that got canceled.
Mm.
Ohio State missed games against Maryland and Illinois. Is that not a COVID issue?
Yep, it's a COVID issue, and it's 2 games against lesser opponents.
Right.
So go ahead and cut them out. Go ahead and cut them out. Why? Because them games don't matter. Cut them 2 games out. Good. Okay. Cool. That makes the schedule stronger because they didn't play those 2 games.
So in reality, because Ohio State had a bad schedule, let's look at the body of work.
Man.
Beat Penn State at Penn State, even though Penn State is trash this year because of COVID.
Yep.
They go to who was it? They beat Rutgers. Indiana comes to town. They beat 9th-ranked Indiana at the time. I believe it was something. Let me rephrase it because I don't remember the ranking off the top of my head. They beat a top 10 ranked Indiana team.
Mm-hmm.
They skip the Illinois game, and they pound Michigan State. They were supposed to play a bad Michigan team, but that game gets canceled. And then they play a top 25 ranked Northwestern team in the championship.
Mm-hmm.
Your body of work is there. You've beaten 2 top 25 ranked teams. So you've beaten a top 25 ranked team and a top 10 ranked team.
Yep.
That being said, your body of work is there. Not to mention, you've had a good showing in every game you've played. Your conference decided to actually lift the rules because they knew, let's look at reality, they knew Ohio State was still going to be the best team in the conference, and the next 2 best teams they had already beat, Northwestern and Indiana. And the only reason Indiana doesn't get a higher ranking or a higher push in the top 10 to get a New Year, well, they get a New Year's Six bowl, I believe. But the only reason they weren't going to get into the Big Ten championship was because, 1, Ohio State was better in the head-to-head, and 2, they're in the same division. So even if they wanted to put Indiana in there, you'd have a shitstorm coming behind you because your team the next best team in the division already lost to the best team in the division.
True.
Lesser games don't count because everybody got fucked up by COVID.
Everybody did.
It is just the truth. Everybody got screwed because of COVID. Everybody in all Power 5 conferences missed at least 2 games. So who were you going to put behind, or who were you going to replace Ohio State and Notre Dame with? Please tell me.
I would love to know. I would love to know that answer.
I got none.
I ain't got nobody either.
No, I'm saying
nobody gave me. Oh, they didn't give you no answer, dog.
No.
There is no answer.
No.
Like, this is one of them years where it's like, okay, I still feel that we do need an 18 playoff. I do still feel that way. But for this year, the way it played out, I mean, this is clearly the top 4, man. You know, we can argue about who should be in what position, blah, 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 outside of Bama, basically. But other than that, it's like, okay, you know, there's no one else you can throw in there. You really can't. Because the only thing that makes sense the first round, if you were to throw somebody else in there, is to force Bama to play Clemson the first round. And nobody wants to see that the first round because whoever's left is going to get dog walked in the national championship game. That's a horrible decision. Horrible decision.
We'll do this. We'll do this because I'm pulling it up on my computer now. I'm gonna pull up the ranking.
Okay. And as you do that, I'm gonna say this one thing about it though. The only thing that might make somebody feel like there could be a, you know, slight discrepancy or let's say, you know, a slight disadvantage would be, okay, outside of COVID, from a coaching perspective, everybody's always like, okay, the players that, usually get more snaps and stuff like that, will have a little bit more time and all that on the field, whatever. Okay, I get that part. But at the same time, here's the issue with that. Having more snaps, that's an advantage to an individual who, let's say, is maybe like a true freshman or somebody who hasn't seen the field as much at the collegiate level. Cool. So, like, to our point, we were talking about earlier in the season about those couple games where Lawrence wasn't playing and they had that freshman QB in there, Now, if he would have had more snaps in that game where they popped up and did 73-7, then yeah, he would have definitely had, I feel like, in my opinion, more exposure to be able to do a lot more against Notre Dame that first time around. Outside of that, though, when you look at the college football playoff, you're like, okay, this is like months later, weeks later, way more practices. You know what I'm saying? So that whole scenario now gets thrown out the window. You can't be like, okay, I get it. Yeah, maybe so and so had 11 games, 10 games, whatever, but there's way more practices going on, right? Then you figure on top of that, these are teams that have two different conferences, a conference that started later, which means they have more time to prepare for these games going into it. So yeah, I get it. They had a shorter season or had less games, but they have more preparation time than these other teams because their season started a month or let's say 5 weeks earlier or whatever it is. Okay, cool. But when it comes down to it, when they get in that playoff game, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Here's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being funny, not trying to be a dick, but this is for people watching who have a discrepancy with the way the college football playoff has panned out this year. Even with COVID, with the expansion of all 4 or all 5 Power 5 conferences,
mm-hmm.
I'll do one better. With the expansion of all 5 Power 5 conferences, there are now 14 teams in each conference. With the inclusion this year of Notre Dame in the ACC, that would make 14.
Mm-hmm.
Excluding the Pac-12, there's been a representative from 3 out of the 5 Power 5 conferences consistently each year, with the exception of the first year. That would be the ACC, the Big Ten, and the SEC. If you include the Big 12, the Big 12 is 0-3 lifetime since the playoff started in the college football playoff.
True.
Here's the final ranking. Here's the final college football playoff ranking. In order: Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Florida, Cincinnati, Georgia, Iowa State. That's the top 10. Now, assuming we're just going off a blind assumption, assuming Notre Dame would have won, how far do you think Clemson would have dropped?
Let's see, because Clemson going into the game was what?
They were
4?
They were 10. They were 9-1, so they were 4th. Yes,
they were 4th. So by them being, see, that's the issue because you figure if Notre Dame wins that game, Clemson then becomes a 2-loss team. They drop to, see, they probably only fall to 5 though. They can't fall any further than 5. But then by that, see, that's the thing. If they win that game, I still wouldn't put A&M in it.
That was my point. By that logic, this is the logic that somebody gave me because A&M lost to Bama by 28, but beat Florida, even though Florida lost to LSU. And his logic was you're only as good as your last game. So Florida's last game before yesterday was LSU, and you lost.
Yep, you lost.
And then you come into the conference championship game and you lost. Even though you had a great showing, you still lost.
Mm-hmm.
So your last 2 games, if you're only as good as your last game, your last 2 games showed you can't win. You lost to an opponent you were supposed to beat. Actually, you were supposed to dominate. And then you lost to the possible national champ.
Yep.
So with that logic, we can eliminate A&M. The next after them is Oklahoma. Oklahoma is already a 2-loss team going into their conference championship. They lost to Iowa State, and I believe they lost to somebody. I can't remember who else they lost to. But they're a 2-loss team no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And Oklahoma is 0-3 in the college playoff. Because
So you can't put them in either.
So the only representative from the Big 12 to make it to the college playoff is Oklahoma.
Is Oklahoma.
So you're 0-3. Do anybody want to see you go 0-4? Honestly. Okay.
Nope.
By your logic, I'm going with that. So we move on from Oklahoma to Florida. Florida's an 8-3 team after yesterday. You were already a 2-loss team.
You can't
lost to
A&M.
A&M. You lost to A&M, you lost to LSU, and you lost to Bama in the conference championship. So you're 8-3. Are you getting in?
Nope.
Okay. Cincinnati is 9-0. But like Joey Galloway said, because don't nobody want to believe me or believe you or me when we say it, but Joey Galloway said this Tuesday on the ranking before yesterday's show. He said, if I'm Cincinnati, I make a move to get out of the American Conference because the American Conference is not doing me any favors. But when we say it, we're crazy.
Right. And it's like, who you got in your conference that's going to make you even get that bump to go up that high?
Navy was terrible this year.
Sucked.
You went in and dog walked SMU physically. I mean, the score doesn't look like it, but physically you beat them up.
Right.
And then you beat the next best team after that, which was Tulsa.
It's crazy, man.
Okay. So because of Cincinnati's schedule and the conference that they're in, they're automatically eliminated just based off of those two things. Not even looking at the fact that they're still undefeated. So we're going to cross them out, but I give them a free pass because they made it through the season in a COVID season, undefeated. Georgia behind them at 7-2. That's the 9th ranked team. Georgia 7-2. You lost to Georgia and you lost to somebody else. But you're 7-2. And you're ranked number 9. You're not going any higher. Be happy with that. And on top of that, even if you were having an outside chance at the college playoff, you are still a 2-loss team.
2-loss team with no conference championship.
And finally, at number 10, you're Iowa State. You're a 3-loss team because you lost in the conference championship. But before the conference championship, you were a 2-loss team. You beat the team in the regular season that beat you in the conference championship.
See, that's what I'm saying, man.
And just for shits and giggles, after that, the next 5 teams in the top 15 go in order: Indiana, Coastal Carolina, North Carolina, Northwestern, and Iowa. Only one of those teams is undefeated. Can we guess who it is? Coastal Carolina.
Coastal Carolina. You can't see. That's.
So,
can't do that.
Again, for those that are going to be watching and for those that have watched, and you're making an argument, which is rightfully so, I get it, how you feel. You feel like the college football playoff this year was rigged or whatever. But look at the reality. Those are the best 4 teams in the country.
Period.
You can't escape it. They are the best 4 teams in the country. Why? Because they showed it week in, week out. Ohio State averaged 40 points a game outside of the conference championship. And you don't really expect a high-scoring conference championship game unless they have that 2014 team that they had, which was just fucking dominant with Zeke and Cardale Jones in them. You don't have that team anymore. But you do have one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Justin Fields. Actually, the top 4 quarterbacks, one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the country in Justin Fields. Everybody else that has the best quarterback next to him is in the college football playoff with you.
Exactly.
So, again, because Ohio State did not have the blowout game that they were supposed to have, even though they won by 12 points against Northwestern. And let's give Northwestern some credit. Northwestern is a good defensive team this year. Pat Fitzgerald was a defensive player. So, of course, they're going to have a good defensive team. Offense was their kryptonite. And to Josh Unger, who's a good guy, he gave me a good stat. He gave me a really good stat. Was that the Illinois game, Northwestern rushed for 400 yards. But here's the thing: one, it's Illinois. Two, this was something that they had to work on. This was something that they had to work on because they knew they were going to play Ohio State. If you can't run the ball against Ohio State, you're going to have problems. You can't be one-dimensional against Ohio State.
Nope.
At all.
Never.
You have to have balance.
Never.
And that's exactly what Indiana had in that game. Now, I know we're going to get some flack about this, but at the same time, if you can't tell us who else you were going to put in behind Alabama and Clemson, there is no argument there. Because there was nobody else. Not this year.
Not one. Not
Everybody
one.
And to your comment, I don't think the committee was forced. I think this was a no-brainer for them. Being that everybody missed games because of a COVID situation. On top of the COVID situation, everybody had players opting out. So every team was not at full strength. Let's just call it what it is. Maybe except for Alabama and Clemson. Everybody else, even Notre Dame, was not at full strength until later in the season. Ohio State and the rest of the Big Ten had to fight to get their season back because they weren't going to play them. They weren't going to let them play. So they had to win two battles. They had to win the battle to get on the field, and they had to win the conference championship. How do you disclude or how do you discredit or kick a team out for winning two battles that nobody expected them to win?
Exactly. Because you figure this was a year where you wouldn't see any Big Ten representation at all had they not hit the field.
It would have been this would have been the best shot that they had Ohio State and Northwestern and Indiana not fought to get their season back.
And then let's keep it all the way real. They kickstarted the fight to get these other conferences back on the field because at the time it was just going to be SEC football and ACC football. That was it. Pac-12 already folded. Big Ten already folded. The Big 12 was like, I don't know. You know what I mean? And the thing is, when you take more than half of these Power 5 conferences out of it, they were already talking about not having a national title game this year.
Right.
So it's like, okay, now you have a national title game this year because the Big Ten came back, the Pac-12 came back. The Big 12 was like, okay, we'll go ahead and move forward because they were kind of like sitting to see what everybody else is going to do. And now your Power 5 is back.
And that's the right thing to do if you're the Big 12. You want to see what everybody's doing because if you don't see what everybody else is doing and you just go say, okay, we're going to play, and then fuck around and find out nobody else is playing but the SEC and the ACC, you're kind of like, then what's the point?
Right. You're like, who wants to do that?
Yeah. So I wish I could invite some of these people on, but nobody wants to take the invite. And it's okay. But
no, we get it. We get it. I mean, my thing is this, man. At the end of the day, and I'll say this, on air too. Like I told you, and this is the main reason why, we do this in the first place, because I cannot allow myself to speak solely from a fan's perspective. I can't. At the end of the day, I'm always going to have something to back it up. I'm always going to have something that I'm looking at. And then with me and you having different, levels of experience when it comes to, football in general, or how we view the game, from a player's perspective or even from a coach's perspective, it's just totally different, And the thing is, I'm not that person who's going to go off of a team's name, and say that they're the ones that should be there, or because this person is next in line in a ranking that they should be there. There's always a bias associated with this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, you have to be like, all right, who actually, like you said, to your point, has put in the body of work, who has beat the team supposed to beat, who is the one driving that stat line, and ultimately, who's going to make it worthwhile to even watch it. Because at the end of the day, yes, it is about talent, but it's also about money. And don't nobody want to see Alabama Cincinnati national championship game.
As much as I would love Cincy to be in the national championship,
I'm just saying
that would be a slaughter because and it's not Cincinnati's fault
Nope.
because they've always been in the lower half of the Power Five, meaning they're there. The talent is getting there, and because
Definitely.
Fickle left Ohio State when he did and took the job, which was the perfect opportunity for him. It gave him the motivation. Number one, number two, it gave him the chance to recruit like Ohio State in the state of Ohio, not just the country, but the state of Ohio. Because now you have, hey, look, I've played at Ohio State, I've coached at Ohio State, I've won at Ohio State. But remember, as an interim coach, he is undefeated.
Yep, that is true.
So, I'm with Joey, even though I've said this before, Joey, publicly, that I can think of. Even with that, I'm still in agreement with Joey. If I'm Cincinnati, I push to move away from the American as soon as possible. And I look to join the Big Ten in some way. If I got to replace the team, I'm replacing. If I got to replace Rutgers, who don't belong there, Rutgers and Cincy could trade places in the American because that program needs to back up. Greg Schiano, former Ohio State defensive coordinator, great coach, can't compete with recruiting in the Big Ten. It's just not there for him. Move back to the American, build it up, try again later. But if I'm Cincinnati, I push to join the Big Ten and replace either Maryland or Rutgers ASAP.
And I actually like the idea of replacing Rutgers not just for football, but for basketball too.
Yeah, but
that would be awesome.
And you still keep Maryland in basketball, and Maryland's traditionally a good hooper school too. So yeah, I just wanted people out there to understand, if we're gonna have this argument, show me a reason why, outside of the fact that certain games, Ohio State, Notre Dame, they don't look good, but they still win. And if you're part of the committee, it's gonna the first thing they're gonna ask you, who did you beat? It's just off GP. You've seen it since the BCS era, because the CFA, which is the College Football Association era, it was automatically who did you beat? Where were they ranked? It wasn't a who did you beat? What did your schedule look like? It was who did you beat? Where were they ranked? BCS era, who did you beat? How much did you beat them by? Who did they beat, and how much did they beat them by? And now we get to the playoffs, it's even worse. Who did you beat? Where were they ranked? Have they beaten anybody else that's ranked or worth talking about?
Exactly.
So, in the top four, everybody beat somebody ranked. Well, you kind of already knew Bama was going to run through the SEC, because that's what Nick Saban does. He owns that conference. It's just the way it is. Clemson, they beat a Miami team. If I'm not mistaken, they beat a Carolina team. And then in the conference championship, first off, let's go back. They beat Miami, who was ranked. They beat Carolina, who was ranked. And then they lost to the number 4 team, who was the number 3 team at the time, in Notre Dame. They beat them in the conference championship, but they lost to them, and it was double overtime. So Notre Dame took 2 overtimes to beat them. So there's Clemson's body of work. You move to Ohio State. They beat a top 10 ranked Indiana. Nobody expected Indiana to be that good this year.
Well, no, absolutely not.
And then they beat a top 15 ranked Northwestern, who nobody expected to be in the conference championship, because they were in the same division as Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota. And every last one of those teams who were expected to show real well they stunk the joint up. So they were the next best team in the division. And they beat a ranked Wisconsin team at the time. Soundly. And then you move to Notre Dame. Notre Dame had to join a conference. Think about this, people. In 130 years of Notre Dame football, they never joined a conference. Part of the reason of that was because Michigan adamantly did not want them to join the Big Ten, because the coach at Michigan hated everything about Notre Dame from the coach on down. That's the reason they were never in the Big Ten, for those that don't know. If you don't believe me, look it up. On top of not being able to join a conference for 130 years after trying to join the Big Ten, they went independent, made their own name by scheduling non-conference or independent opponents. Here in the COVID pandemic, they joined the ACC and held their own. I'm sorry for getting loud, but that's a big thing that you have to do. You're an independent team. Been an independent team for 130 years of your school's history.
Yeah.
So for over 100 years, just say, I'll give them 110 years of football. You've never played in a conference. The year that your schedule gets wiped the fuck out, all the teams that is on your schedule are going conference only. Your only resolution is to join a conference. You join the conference that you're only affiliated in basketball, and you hold your own when nobody expected you to even win a game, or let alone 5 games. You go undefeated, make it all the way to the conference championship. Why do people expect you not to be there? And you've clearly shown you're the best, the third or fourth best team in the country.
That's another thing, man, because my thing is like to have that argument or to say, okay, here it is where you want to feel like these two teams are, don't belong, whatever it is. Like I said before, this is one of the best years that Notre Dame has had, you know what I mean, especially in recent years. And you just can't count them out this time, especially the fact that they decided to jump onto the ACC for the season, knowing that that was going to be the boost that they needed in order to get in, and then also having Clemson right there and to beat them, that's enough proof right there. You know what I'm saying? So to just say they're going to get knocked out, like they're a one-loss team that lost in the conference.
And who's to say they won't beat Alabama?
Right. That's another thing. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, who's to say they won't learn from getting their asses handed to them against Clemson in the conference championship and say, okay, we don't want that to happen again. And historically, if you want to go that far, I'll give you another stat. Here in this college playoff, you have the top 2 teams that have won the most national championships in NCAA Division I history. Not NCAA history, because that belongs to Mount Union. But in NCAA Division I history, Notre Dame and Alabama have the most conference championships. Or not conference championships, but most national championships with 12. They both have 12. So if Alabama or Notre Dame win a national championship this year, they will they will tie Mount Union for the most national championships in NCAA history, for those that like obscure stats. So keep that in mind. I don't understand why. Hey, welcome back.
Yeah.
But I don't understand. Like I was just saying before you had to switch over. In this particular college playoff, both Notre Dame and Alabama are tied for the most national championships in NCAA Division I history. So for those that are wondering, why would you keep talking about Notre Dame? That's why. They have the best chance to win a national championship, even though they have not won a championship since '88. They still have that option because they put out a decent enough product to where they can beat anybody.
True.
And, if either one of them wins, they will have tied the record for most national championships with Mount Union at 13. Who else is going to make this game worth watching this year?
That is very true. Woo, not them. Not them. Not them at all. I mean, I get people want to be on like the historical part of it, or to say, oh, here's where, these teams could match up and see who get. Nah, that team right there, you just said, no, absolutely not. Not. And just for folks that are listening, that wasn't a real answer, in case you're wondering, because we know Mel wouldn't say that for real. But make a point of the fact that there's literally no one else who could be in the top 4 right now at this very point. So for people that are out there like, oh, it could have been this person, blah, 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 or maybe so-and-so can slide up in there. No, nope, not at all. Especially not this year. Sorry. Now, maybe
try next year.
Right. Next year, we'll see what happens. We'll see who chooses to go to the NFL and who doesn't. That's going to be a part of it.
But this year, it's not happening. And I'm sorry that everybody and is not going to agree with it. But if you go back and look at it, all the Power 5 conferences, every team that's ranked in the Power 5 or in the top 25 from the Power 5 conference, outside of BYU and Coastal Carolina and Cincinnati, they've missed a game or two because of COVID issues.
Exactly.
So if you're going to say something like that, and that's what you're standing on, then how about we do this? How about we take all 4 of them, Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and X them out and put Coastal Carolina, Cincinnati, BYU, and dare I say San Jose State in, and put that playoff up and see how well that goes over, and see how many people watch that game or watch those semifinals games.
It'd be the lowest viewed national title game since the college football playoff. No, let's go further back than that. It'll be the least viewed national title game since the BCS era. Let's go that far back.
It'd be the worst game since Georgia played Hawaii in the Sugar Bowl.
Oh man, that game. Ugh. Woo.
That was worse. As much as I loved at the time, as much as I love the Warriors, because that's what I'm gonna always look at them as. As much as I love the Warriors, they did not deserve. They deserved to be there, but they didn't deserve to be there. If that makes any sense. They deserved to be there because they went there. They beat who they needed to beat. They won their conference. But you're not beating Georgia. At that time, you wasn't beating Georgia.
No, not at that point. Now, see, that year, that would have been a good argument for a playoff. Because the way that went down, I get it. And it came down to the wire in that SEC championship game. My God, that was a good game against Bama. That was a banger. That was a great game. And then I think that was what, Gurley's last year?
Mm-hmm.
And they had Chubb out there too.
But remember, that year what helped Hawaii out so much.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They beat USC. They went to USC and beat USC.
Mm-hmm.
And then USC ended up winning the Pac-12. So that's what helped them out a lot.
True.
But even with that, they still should have settled for, like, I'd say the Cotton Bowl. But the Sugar Bowl against a pissed off Georgia? No. Wasn't happening.
And is that back when they had your boy Timmy Chang?
No, that was Colt Brennan. Timmy Chang was right before Brennan.
Ah, dang. All right. Man.
But Timmy Chang, that was a bad boy too, man. It just, that team was not fit to play that style of football against that kind of Georgia team. Like, you don't have the line that they need. And it was Hawaii's fault, but it wasn't their fault. But they didn't have what they needed to beat Georgia. You had what you needed to beat USC because half of those players knew each other.
Right.
You don't have what you need to beat the Georgia team like that because you don't recruit like that. You're recruiting at the time, you're recruiting for WAC play. You're not recruiting for a SEC play. That's basically what you're recruiting for. And I want people to understand the context of that. Hawaii, most kids would love to go to a school like Hawaii, but they don't recruit like a Big 10, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12 team. They recruit because they're playing teams on their level, which would be Boise State, San Jose State, Fresno State. So those are teams they're going to see every year. You're not guaranteed to come to Ohio State all the way to Columbus for one game. You're not guaranteed that game. You're guaranteed a Boise State game. You're guaranteed a Nevada game, teams like that. And when they saw Georgia, it was bad. Not because they couldn't play with them, it was that they didn't have enough manpower.
True. I mean, you
So
figure that team was loaded too, because like you figure they had Gurley on his way out, Chubb and Sonny Michelle were freshmen, and then you had, I believe, who was still the quarterback at that time frame? I want to say, I think Stafford was already gone. It was a guy right after that, but then you
man,
still had that
my
was a
computer
while ago.
my computer is running too slow to look that up. But the point is, if you would have had a playoff back then, it would have looked like it do. Like we're saying, Georgia would have dog walked Hawaii in an 18 playoff. Georgia would have dog walked Hawaii in advance. So if you put an 18 playoff together now, just for the sake of discussion, who does Cincinnati beat in the 18 playoff? Because everybody in front of them is either as good or better than them from Florida on down.
Exactly.
And in the final college playoff ranking, Cincinnati would have been the only group of 5 team to make the college playoff. Because the college football playoff, Cincinnati's number 8. So if you throw out an 18 playoff, who does Cincinnati beat?
No one. I'm sitting here like in my head, like anybody.
No. Depending on who the matchup is, even Texas A&M, you might have a good showing, but you might not win that game. Just calling it like I see it.
It's funny. I was just looking at the teams from that game. Okay, yeah. Oh, that was that game. So in that Sugar Bowl, this was back 2008. The running back at the time frame who actually got the start was Noshawn Moreno.
Oh man, you ain't stopping them.
And then that's Matthew Stafford's last game too, by the way.
Look, and they beat the Hawaii.
41-10 was the final score.
There you go. There you go.
That was ugly.
So again, if you go, and like I said, if you go to an 18 playoff today, who does Cincinnati beat?
Who do they beat? I mean, who?
They're a good enough team to make it there, but depending on the matchup, who do they beat? That's a legit question.
That's a great question. Actually, I'm sitting here now like, who do you match them up with in the first? I mean, if you look at the 8 teams, if you look at top 8 teams, and this is where you gotta like kind of get shift around or something like that. Because you figure with them, if they're in there, let's say they're number 8, they're in there with them. Okay, who's next then? Who are they gonna play? Are they gonna do the same type of setup where it's like, okay, your top faces the lowest, or is it like something else going on with that? Because then, if that's the case, are they playing Bama the first round?
Probably, more than likely.
See, that wouldn't work either.
I'm thinking they do this. I'm thinking they do the 1 versus 8 like they do in the NBA playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 6 versus 3. All of that.
The 4 and 5, yeah.
So if they were to do that, Bama's your first game. You're not beating Bama.
You're not. You're really not. And the only help they really could give you is they say, okay, maybe we switch it up. Maybe we do like, they're doing the college football playoff. Right. Do like the top 4 face each other and then like some other situation where they mix it up at the bottom. I don't know.
But even then, if you stuck at the bottom, you're still playing
A&M.
A&M
or Florida.
Or I would say Oklahoma. A&M or Oklahoma.
Oh, it's worse. It's worse. Oh man, you got wait. So you figure if you at 8, if let's say, okay, Bama obviously the top 4, you're not going to beat any of them. But then let's say you're at the bottom, you still got to worry about Oklahoma, A&M, Florida, you don't belong. You don't belong. Not this year. You don't. You just
Now,
don't.
now, like I said, if, and this is a very big
Hmm.
if Cincinnati starts making that push to leave the American Conference, and assuming let's say they buy themselves out,
Yep.
and they talk to the Big Ten this year after bowl season or whatever to get in, I think they have a chance to hold their own. I think they place in the top four, to be honest.
True.
Just because Luke Fickell knows the conference, so he knows how to recruit.
Yeah,
which is
that's
something
true too.
which is something that you need to do in the Big Ten to keep up with Ohio State, that team up north, Penn State, just in your division. And I honestly think they'd be put in that same division. So you got to recruit, unless they swap teams out and put maybe Illinois in the East, or no, they wouldn't do that. So I would say they put somebody else in the East, and then move Cincinnati or keep Cincinnati in the East. You still may have to compete with Ohio State as far as recruiting goes. And Luke Fickell knows the conference. He knows Ohio State. So I don't see why he wouldn't fare decently or place in the top four teams in the Big Ten.
And see, that's where it comes down to. That recruiting is a bottom line. I mean, you figure, even looking at some other conferences, right? So the biggest thing was, and this is something that, I always say, Bama's success that they've had, a lot of that is not just Saban, but also Kirby Smart. I mean, he
Right.
has like what? He has a championship with him at LSU, and then he has what, three or four more, I think it's three, at Bama or whatever. So the thing is, like, okay, he was the primary defensive coordinator at the time too, and he was actually the guy recruiting people. And
Right.
that's why he's still able to pull in certain players that we know would have thrived at Bama, but they're still choosing Georgia to come to play for. And the only reason why Georgia is still quote unquote relevant for that reason. The thing is, looking at, let's say, in recent recruitings, I've been looking at the 2021, 2022s, they've locked in Vandergriff. That's a 5-star QB. You got a 5-star, what was it? Linebacker, I believe, that's signing with them too, and a
Yep.
couple of corners that are 4-star. Like, they're locking and loading these guys in now. It's not just, oh, I'm going to verbally commit. No, signing day came and they were like signing that paper off, and they looking a lot better than they did about a month or two ago, you know.
Right.
And to see Vandergriff now having to battle out JT Daniels for that starting spot next year, that's going to be pretty cool to check out. But overall, that recruiting, to a point that we're trying to make here, is that the recruiting alone is what drives a lot of this stuff, because you got to get players to come and play at your school. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, when you got a powerhouse like that in your conference, when you have a Bama, when you have an OSU or something like that, if you know how to recruit these guys, if you know what to say to kind of get them in and be like, okay, at the end of the day, look at our team, look at their team. I get it. They're loaded up. They're going to be loaded for some time. Look at our team. Do we have a good pedigree? Okay, we got some people we need to work with, whatever, build a foundation. I get that. But you could be that dude. You could
Right.
be that dude that turns the tide. You know what I'm saying? Not throwing off puns or anything, but you could be that guy that makes it happen. You know what I mean? And I
I
think
mean,
that's the message that you have to throw out there. If you're going to
it's
be in
the
the
truth.
same conference, you know, you see
Crazy.
them bright
Hey,
spots.
and now
So,
that I think about this, looking at this ranking again, somebody
mhm.
said something that really made me mad. And it was through the conversation of who else do you put in that I kept asking. And he said, and I quote, and A&M beat Tennessee.
What?
Okay,
Are we
wait,
really referencing Tennessee?
that's what I said. But here's my thing about this. This is what I responded with.
Oh
You were
my.
supposed to beat Tennessee, but even with that Tennessee win, LSU still beat Florida. You beat Florida, but they look like shit against LSU, who they were supposed to beat, and they're looking like shit now before they made that comeback in the second half, even though they never got the lead.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So my question is still,
Wow.
My question was
Tennessee?
still, even if A&M beat Tennessee, they were supposed to beat them. So do you still put them in because they beat Tennessee? And the team that
No.
you beat, who lost to LSU, is getting beat on now? Do you still put them in at fifth or at fourth? No.
Nope. Tennessee.
And
Oh man.
that's what I say. I'm like, dude, Tennessee ain't been relevant since Peyton left.
Right.
And
Any
even then,
relevance?
Peyton wasn't the one that won the national championship. It was the guy after him, as we keep saying, and we keep referencing.
Horrible.
I get it. Everybody got a discrepancy with the ranking, but the bottom line is, Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Notre Dame are still the best 4 teams in the country. Body of work is there. Everybody on their schedule that they beat that was ranked, or they got, everybody in the top 4 has at least 2 ranked wins, signature wins, as the committee would call it. 2 signature wins. Every team has at least 2 signature wins. So if everybody in the top 4 has 2 signature wins, how do you kick any one of them out? You can't.
Can't do it.
I'm sorry. But if you want to debate this with us, and I'm being serious, if anybody who watches this wants to debate this with us, we will invite you on the show. We will invite you on. We will give you time to research your debate or your case. And I will even hear you out to the point where I won't even respond till after you're done. And you know that's hard for me to do.
And I will co-sign and say the same for me, because normally if I hear something that's alarming, I will jump in. But at this point, I'm all for that too. Because my thing is, I'm the kind of person where when people say, respect someone else's opinion, and I feel like it's wrong, in my head, I'm thinking that they think that 3 cubed is 6. So whatever. For those math people out there, that's not a times 2, that's cubed. Double, right? 3 and 3 is 9. Anyway, going beyond that, we will give you that time. I am looking forward to that. Like I said, like Mel said, do your research. We'll be more than happy to have you on. More than happy to.
And we got time before bowl season starts. So New Year's 6 doesn't start till December 30th, December 31st. You got time if you want to argue this, because once these New Year's 6 games start, don't say nothing to me, because the games is already gonna happen.
Absolutely.
And to make it even easier for you, when you do research this, I want y'all to give me a fact, something that you can back up, and then when I look it up, I say, okay, you got a point, because everything we just said, we backed up. We just pulled up the schedule, the rankings. Everybody that you had a case for don't really have a case. And the teams that you feel like may have a case, the resume ain't strong enough. Not to the committee.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry. Dang, man, if you don't shut up, we want you. You know what? Dang, I'm going to bring you on. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break for Christmas. So we're not going to do a show Sunday. But closer to, I got to look at the schedule, but closer to the holiday, or closer before New Year's, whatever Sunday's coming up after Christmas, we will bring you on, and we will discuss college football. There ain't no lies. Cut it out, man. So before we get off, since Dame is making comments, Dame was the quarterback that we were talking about earlier when Josh was on, and arguably he is one of the best quarterbacks I've ever played with. He sucks at Tecmo Bowl, but he is still one of the better and most knowledgeable quarterbacks I've ever played with. He's a damn good coach. Can't say nothing bad about him other than he stinks at Tecmo Bowl.
Dang.
But we will bring Dame on, and we will have a great discussion with Dame, and I'll share one of them Tecmo Bowl stories.
Oh man, I was gonna say I'm sitting here like, man, I can't wait to hear about this.
Oh
It's
man,
always that connection.
if you thought the Heat story was bad, you should see some of these Tecmo Bowl games we played.
Cool. We're gonna definitely table that till then for sure. I gotta hear this, man.
So
Gotta hear
so
this.
so Dame, let me look at the schedule. We are taking Christmas break off. So we're going to regroup after Christmas. That Monday after Christmas, me and Ronnie are going to regroup and see if we want to do a show before New Year's. We probably will, because believe it or not, we do have some news for you guys that we're not going to share until that time. And it's very big for us. We are happy that it happened. I'm excited. I don't know about Ronnie, but I'm trying to contain my excitement until that time.
Can't reveal nothing.
Yeah. We can't really reveal it until it's time. But big things. We told y'all big things was gonna happen, and they are happening. I'm blessed. I know I'm blessed to have Ronnie as a partner with this. So you guys just stick with it. I do want to throw this out before we end the show. We did throw out a trivia question that nobody even chimed in on. And I was surprised because none of the people knew this. Nobody chimed in on this. So the question was, this athlete, is one of two athletes of any sport, period, in history to win a championship in two sports in the same year. Nobody got it. So I'm going to give the answer. The athlete that won two championships in two different sports in the same year was none other than Otto Graham. Otto Graham won a NBL, not NBA, a NBL. So this was before the merger. He won it with the Rochester Royals back in 1946. And in the same year, he joined the Browns and won the AAFC for the first time in 1946. So he won a basketball championship and a football championship in the same year.
That's a lot of hard work, especially professional level.
So technically, if you want to get technical, Graham made 11 championships, won 8 of them.
Man.
So I'm going to give Otto his credit, because it's very hard to win a championship in two different sports in the same year, let alone period. And he did it.
For sure.
All right. While we got a chance, before we end the show, we would like to send out another shout out. It's a great product. I'm still using it, and I'm still tired as shit after using it. But it's a great product. Box Band. If you've seen this on Facebook, or if you've seen the Larry Dickham commercial, and no, I'm not being punned, that is the man's real name, or the character's real name. So if you see this, go look them up. It's a great product. If you're a boxer, if you're a fighter, you just want to work on cardio, you want to just get yourself in some type of shape, look for Box Band. Go look them up. They are a great product. We appreciate them for sending us both a product that we can use, and I have been using. I can't ask for a better product. And mind you, they were the first people to reach back, first sports product to reach back to us. So we greatly appreciate them for all their support.
Absolutely, man. And I will say for me, I haven't had a chance to test it out as much because I'm still doing my PT, obviously. But, I'm just thankful for the opportunity to be able to have that and to be able to say that we can, officially put the name out there and represent them, man. So hats off for them for getting us this stuff. And, we hope that more of you get a chance to check them out and to buy more product.
Amen. All right. That concludes our episode. We're sorry we took so long, but we had a great show nonetheless. I know Ronnie got a kick out of the Heat story. It was great having Josh on.
That was good, though.
It was great having Josh on. It was even better having Natalie on to get a woman's perspective in sports. We appreciate those guys. And like we said, if you want to come on and you want to debate something, Dame, I ain't talking about you. We're going to bring you on the damn show. But anybody else want to come on and debate in the topic, just let us know. We'll set it up. We are not opposed to having nobody on, but I'm telling you now, if you're coming on, have you all your facts straight. That's the only thing we ask. Come correct with your facts. We'll take Christmas break off. We'll regroup. We'll probably update you guys on our Facebook page. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube page because all of our episodes are on there. All of our live streamed episodes are on there anyway. And there are some good people on that show. There are some good people. Honestly, I feel like we are the only podcast with an African-American crew that can honestly say we've had both Scorpions on from Mortal Kombat, the video game and the movie. I don't think anybody else.
I don't think so either.
I'm sticking with that. So if you can find somebody else, let me know, but I don't think so. But other than that, we appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe us again on Facebook and YouTube. For 4th and 15, I'm Mel. That's Smooth. Peace.
Peace.